Call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, and thank you for coming this evening. City Clerk, please take the roll.
There are 6 council members present. Councilmember Rasmussen is absent.
Thank you. Action on to approve the agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any comments from the public about the agenda? Comments from council? Questions? Please call the roll.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran. Aye. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tiltonburn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Okay, so item 4, we're going to have some public hearings here. And just so everybody understands, our regular meeting will not start until 7 o'clock, regardless of how long this takes. Item 4, public hearing and action on a request for a reasonable accommodation at 312 8th Avenue. Item 4A is a public hearing concerning the request by Oxford House for reasonable accommodation for 312 8th Avenue. Oxford House requests the City of Brookings to waive the requirements of Ordinance 22-031, which sets the maximum occupancy limits for unrelated persons residing in a single household. Oxford House asserts in their application waiver of the requirements of Ordinance 22-031 is necessary so residents can better address the effects of substance use disorder. Our city attorney will conduct the meeting or the hearing and briefly explain the hearing procedure.
Thank you, Mayor. First, before we get started, I wanted to make sure that our representatives for the Oxford House are able to hear first of all, hear the mayor and myself. Stephen Pollan, did you hear all of that?
Yes, I can hear.
Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
It's Poland. Thank you very
Poland?
much.
Okay, thank you. And Andrew Wainwright, also representing Oxford House. Can you hear us speak?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you. And because they are appearing by telephonically, it's important, I guess, that we make sure that everyone is participating, that we have good telephone connections, and so there's a full and fair hearing so everyone can fairly participate in this hearing. In the first hearing, we'll have 2 hearings tonight. The first one addresses 312 8th Avenue, and I'm going to review the hearing procedure, and I'll kind of try to do this, all of the steps that we're going to cover tonight, and then we'll return to the first step, and I'll probably repeat it just so that we have clear understanding, because it's important that all of the issues that are raised tonight are heard and understood, and that everyone can participate as fully as they desire. So the first step of the hearing procedure tonight will be to the City of Brookings will provide a brief statement concerning the city's procedures to date in regard to 312 8th Avenue. And Mike Struck will provide that for the city. The second procedural step will be for Oxford House's representatives, who will be permitted to make their presentation in support of their request for reasonable accommodation. And if Oxford House has any additional documentary evidence, they could provide it at that time. And then next, the public will have an opportunity to provide public comment. This would include attorneys representing members of the public and the neighborhoods and neighborhood residents in the City of Brookings. And next, the public will also have an opportunity to ask questions of Oxford House's representatives, and the time frame that we're looking at would be 10 to 15 minutes, because we're trying to conduct 2 hearings tonight, and we have about an hour and a half to complete these hearings and give as much opportunity to everyone as possible. The next step would be that James Moore, on behalf of the city, will have questions that he would like to ask Oxford House's representatives. The next step of procedure would be that the City Council will be provided an opportunity to ask questions of either Oxford House, the public, or city staff. So the council will be able to ask questions following Mr. Moore. And next, Oxford House will be provided an opportunity to make a final statement, and the City Council will then discuss briefly their respective positions concerning the request of Oxford House. And it would be appropriate to bring the hearing to a conclusion with a motion, which could be either to grant the request for reasonable accommodation as requested, or to grant a modified reasonable accommodation, or to disapprove of the request for reasonable accommodation, or disapprove the request. And a roll call vote will be conducted with a majority vote determining whether the motion is approved. And then based on the decision, the city will proceed in a manner consistent with the decision of the City Council. And that is the procedure tonight. Mr. Poland, do you have any questions concerning that procedure?
No, I mean, the only question, are you going to be, Mr. Brockman, questions on behalf of the city, or is Mr. Moore?
Mr. Poland, we're getting some feedback. If you're watching the live stream in the background, can you please mute that?
Yeah. I'm muted. I don't know if this is any better or not.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, I'll speak closer to the phone. I hope that'll do the job. Okay, so my question is, I understand the city attorney is going to be conducting the hearing on behalf of the city. Is that correct?
Attorney James Moore will have some questions on behalf of the city.
All right. And are you going to have questions on behalf of the city?
I likely will not, since I'll
Okay.
be trying to moderate this hearing tonight.
Understood. Thank you.
All right, then we'll turn to the City of Brookings' brief statement concerning the city's procedures. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members and members of the public. We're here tonight to act on a request for a reasonable accommodation that has been submitted by the Oxford House. The property location is 312 8th Avenue. This originated back in April of 2024 when the city conducted rental license inspection at the property. And any property that is to be rented in the city of Brookings, we have a rental registration licensing program that we administrate through the staff in my department. At the time that the staff conducted the inspection, they noticed there was a few deficiencies that needed to be addressed, but it was occupied at the time. And so prior to being licensed, it was already being occupied. It's pretty reasonable that a time frame is given to correct those potential violations. Some of them are a little bit easier to correct than others. They did have to address a couple of egress windows issues. That just takes time to line up contractors, get the windows and get them installed. And then the other items they were able to correct in a timely manner. Then as you kind of moved into the summer, we received a request, a letter in July for a reasonable accommodation. The city did not have a process in how to respond to that type of a request, and so we kind of paused operations and adopted the ordinance to address the issues that were here tonight, the ordinance for reasonable accommodations. We subsequently developed an application that applicants would complete that would answer a number of questions, and provided that. And then we did another reinspection of the property, and it was overoccupied according to our family definition at that such time. And then it kind of fast forward to, they submitted their actual formal application after we had conducted that inspection in October. And so we're kind of here tonight to act upon the reasonable accommodation request on whether or not we should have a waiver from the family definition and treat this as a single-family residence. This is a little bit of a unique property in that it's a non-conforming lot. The lot is 5,000 square feet in an R2 district. A single-family dwelling has a maximum lot area requirement of 7,500 square feet. And so non-conforming use is allowed to continue. And then if you looked at any potential expansion opportunities, they're limited on a percentage basis. But if for some reason, something were to happen to this structure where 50% of the assessed value would be destroyed, the only way to rebuild on this lot would require a number of variances to the city zoning ordinance. From the lot area requirement, more than likely probably would require some other additional variances to some of the setback requirements and such. And so it's a challenging lot, and we run into these in the community. It's just property was split decades ago, and so you come across these occasionally. But with that, basically the information here is before you. We have our process laid out and what would be considered in a reasonable accommodation request, and I'd be available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mike. At this time, Mr. Poland, the Oxford House can present their presentation in support of your request for reasonable accommodation.
Okay. Let me make a brief statement and an overview. Hopefully you all can hear me. So Oxford House has been in existence for 50 years. What started as housing just in Washington, D.C. has grown across the country. We now have approximately 4,000 houses in most of the states. Many of the states now, because of the opioid settlement, have contracted with Oxford House, South Dakota being one of them, to come in and provide housing for recovering addicts and alcoholics. Oxford houses are unique in the sober recovery housing world. All of our houses are democratically run. They are financially self-supported. The residents run the house. They make the rules, and they vote people in, and they will expel people for using drugs and non-paying. One of the things that we have found over the years that the best outcomes in terms of long-term recovery is having houses with between 8 and 12 residents. This model, or this of having between 8 and 12 residents, means that usually there are 2 residents per bedroom, and that the residents are able to associate with each other, and that by living with this number of people, it would alleviate the recovering addict or alcoholic's deadliest enemy, with loneliness. The goal of living in is after individuals go to treatment, they'll have the opportunity to live, take the tools that they were received, and be able to start integrating them into life at their own time. One of the distinguishing factors about our house is that there is no limitation on the amount of time people can stay. At the oldest house of the 2 houses, been in existence for a little over a year, we have individuals for 10 months. We believe that the individuals live together as they have a weekly house meeting, they do house tours, they have an opportunity to go to 12-step meetings by having the numbers that we're requesting in this case, for the what we call Oxford House Escape on 8th Avenue to have 7 individuals will allow these individuals, these men, an opportunity to recover at their own pace and at some point return to the community and be responsible, productive members of society and be able to live on their own independently. We have found over the years that one of the reasons that individuals come to live in Oxford House is that they are unable to live independently without the use of drugs and alcohol. Many of them can't live at home because their parents don't trust them or their loved ones don't trust them. Sometimes you hear stories about locks being placed in the medicine cabinet, so they can't get the prescription drugs. Many of the individuals have lost custody of their kids, and by living in Oxford House, they're able to gain the type of sobriety and the stability that enables them to resume having a custodial arrangement with their kids and reunite with their families. I think the best people who are in the position to talk about the positive effects of House in the Brookings community are our people. One is Leif Plouffe, for the other is Evan. There are some individuals who live in the Oxford House, share their experience with you, and we have Wayne, who is an expert witness who's been dealing for 25, 30 years issues in the community, and is able to talk about the beneficial effects of living in a sober living environment that the Oxford House has to offer. So I'm going to ask Leif to come forward and discuss the Oxford House in Brookings, and especially since the first one up is at 312 8th Street, 8th Avenue. Leif?
Go ahead and could you state your name, please?
Yeah, my name's Leif.
Right.
Plobe. My last name's Plobe.
Okay, you can proceed.
Okay. So what is it that you wanted me to speak on, Steve?
I want you to talk about how the Oxford House. Let's talk about the relationship in the community and the need that the house fulfills in the.
Okay. So, did he say the need with the community? His voice is.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yeah, Oxford House. My name's Leif Plobe. I'm the regional manager for South Dakota and California. They hire from within. So I got clean and sober in June 11th, 2016, and I moved into an Oxford House in Eugene, Oregon. And I lived there for about 2 years before I went and opened a new men's house and stayed there for 2 years. And I'm just I'm giving all that information just to kind of qualify myself as far as what that looks like. With the community partners in this area, I know that the reason why Brookings was one of the areas that we've opened houses in South Dakota is because the treatment providers were asking us, like, when are you going to get here? Because we've been in South Dakota for a couple years now, and they have greatly benefited from us in other areas. And so we came into Brookings because the treatment providers were saying that they needed housing here for people that were in recovery from alcoholism and addiction. As far as the therapeutic value of having these houses, they're peer ran, they're self-supporting, all the things. The benefit of having a house like that, speaking as a man of experience, like when I first got clean and sober, by default, we are programmed to push back. When we have one person telling us what to do, our default button is to push back against that. But when I was living in a house that was full of men that were on the same journey that I was on, they quickly became my family, and it turned into, rather than one person saying, "Leif, you're doing this wrong," it was a group of men that I had had respect for that were saying, hey, we're noticing these behaviors and we're worried about you and we'd like you to make some changes, you know. And so it was a lot easier for me to respond to a group of men, like-minded individuals that were on the same journey that I was on, to help me stay on the tracks and propel me in the right direction. As far as Brookings as a community, you know, the more beds that we have to offer, Oxford House, kind of like Steve touched on, we don't give a time limit to people. People recover at different rates. So much like I occupied a bed in an Oxford House, 2 different ones, but I was there for 4 years before I moved out on my own. The way that we operate is if there's still a need, we try to find another house and open another house. That way we can provide the beds that are needed for the individuals who are looking for safe, stable housing while they're recovering. So with that being said, like the limitation of having the just 6, I think is what's going on here with some of the houses. Like if there's a house big enough, and Steve had already kind of touched on this, the first house that I lived in held 12 people, and you know, I mean, it was very beneficial for me as well as the community, and in the aspect of that's just 2 more people, 3 more people that we can help get off the street and get them on the right track as far as finding their legs in recovery and becoming a productive member of the community rather than, you know, whatever it is that the path that they were on before they get to that point. Is there any other question you have, Steve? Did I answer that one good?
Yeah, let me ask you, do the residents work?
Do the residents work?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're what we call working housing. So ultimately, we can accept somebody who doesn't have a job or doesn't have any funding, but right away the individuals in the house, because they have a weekly house meeting, they're going to have that conversation right away that, listen, we need you to get a job and contribute your part for the house because they are self-supporting. Everybody has to be held to the same standard. So they all have to have jobs. They all have to be participating in some type of recovery. You know, typically they'll require that you go to at least 2 recovery type meetings per week, whether that be AA, NA, your refuge recovery. There's many paths now, but yes, the house will have them working.
All right. Why don't you explain about the weekly house meeting and doors, accountability?
Can you repeat that, Steve?
Mr. Poland, we're having trouble hearing you. Your voice is breaking up. I don't know if there's anything that you can do at your end to improve the communication. Maybe just hold the phone a little closer.
Yeah. If you can explain how the weekly house meetings work, the house tours, how the residents hold themselves accountable.
Yeah. So when it comes to behavioral issues, I think that this is what he's asking as far as how the residents hold each other accountable, whether it be behavioral issues or whether it be requirements. Some people might come in on parole and probation and have certain requirements they have to meet to be able to keep their parole officer or probation officer happy. Whatever that looks like, during these weekly house meetings, they check in with each other, they go over their struggles, they go over their successes, they celebrate each other, and they will also hold each other accountable to meeting the requirements, whether that be getting the job, whether that be making whatever it is the requirements are for their parole and probation, or even basic behavioral issues, because when you live in a group living situation, oftentimes there'll be behaviors that need to be addressed, and so they have things like behavioral contracts in place where they will say, this is the behavior we're noticing, these are the steps that we would like you to take so we don't have to ask you to leave, that kind of thing. So they meet weekly, they go over things like paying their bills, what their account looks like, regular, you know, house business type stuff, and then they also go over things as far as holding each other accountable.
Well, talk about the house bank account and how they pay the rent and the household expenses.
Okay. So what we have is called, we call it EES. It's equal expense shared. So each individual who lives there pays an equal amount into there's multiple house positions, like he had talked about earlier in a house. So there's the president, there's a comptroller who's in charge of collecting everybody's money. There's a treasurer who's in charge of paying the bills, that kind of thing. So the houses completely support themselves. Each member has to pay their portion of the EES. It goes into the bank account, so then they will go over things during their house meetings like, I need to pay the cable bill, or the power bill is due, and this is how much it is. I make a motion to write a check for this much to the cable company. So I mean, they go over, and then they switch. So it's their house positions. They hold them for 6 months, and then they switch. So one of the great things, in my opinion, that Oxford House offers as far as that goes is it teaches basic life skills that a lot of these guys may or may not have. So they learn how to balance a checkbook. They learn the importance of paying their bills on time. They have an opportunity to be the house president, and so they get an opportunity to use their voice in a manner where it's constructive, rather than the way that we used to be prior to finding recovery. So it provides all that kind of stuff and sets somebody up for when they actually do, whether it be 8 months, whether it be 16 months, or whatever their length of stay is before they feel like they're ready to move on. They've got these basic tools in their belt to go on and succeed once they leave the accountability that the house provides.
All right. Why is it necessary for this particular house to have 8 residents?
So this house having 8 residents, we typically will make a decision when we're opening a house as far as how many beds there is to provide. One of the things that Oxford House stands apart from compared to what you would typically consider like a recovery house or a managed house is we don't fill the rooms with bunk beds. We don't stack people in there. We want them to be comfortable. Our main goals are to keep the residents comfortable so they can stay there long enough to get their legs underneath them. Our other important things are, we do the best we can to keep the neighbors happy, and we also do the best we can to keep our landlords happy because we don't own any of the homes, we lease them all. So as far as the importance of having 8 individuals, like in my opinion, the more people that are there, within reason, because typically we don't have any more than 2 people per bedroom, that kind of thing, is that somebody will always be there. So if somebody's having a struggle, loses their job, has a breakup, whatever the case may be, and they come home, there's someone there for them to talk to. The way that this thing works, and I'm going to reference the program that I follow as far as my program of recovery, this works best when there's one alcoholic or addict helping another. So that there's a better opportunity for someone to be home, as well as, kind of like I had mentioned earlier, there's multiple personalities when you have group living, and the odds of there being someone you can relate to are higher if there's a few more people there. And like I had said before too, it doesn't take very long when you move into one of these houses and you're going to meetings together and you're eating together and you're doing these things together where these relationships build to where it turns into your family. So when I am sitting in a house meeting and or somebody in one of these homes, and whether it be they're going through a struggle or if there is a behavior that needs addressed, we've got that group of individuals there to be able to help guide them with some love and accountability to be able to make the changes they need to make so they can continue to succeed.
Okay, thank you. Is Devin there?
Yes.
Wonderful you have Devin. Let me ask this. Mr. Moore, do you have any questions for Mr. Plouffe?
I do have a couple, actually.
Okay.
Good evening. My name's James Moore. I'm outside counsel for the city of Brookings.
Okay.
Do you know how many current occupants there are at this house?
6.
And do you know how long that's been the case?
Devin would have a better answer for you for that. I don't live in South Dakota.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where do you live?
I live in Oregon.
And Can you just explain what oversight responsibility you have for the 2 houses that are in Brookings specifically?
So I supervise the staff. So I mean, I come out every 3 months. I visit once quarterly, and I check on all the staff. I'll go spend some time with the staff member that's in Sioux Falls. You know, we've got 5 staff across the state right now, and so when I come out, I make time to spend with each of them. So I mean, the oversight that I have, and any time that Devin has an issue that he wants to talk about, we're on the phone or we're on Zoom. We do weekly team meetings on Zoom. So I mean, that would be my connection with the houses.
And what do the staff people do?
The staff, so they ultimately, like, it's a typical outreach job, so they build relations with the community partners. They build and sustain and strengthen the relationships with the community partners. They work with the landlords or existing landlords as far as if we need to open a new house somewhere, they're the ones that go out and do the footwork for that. And they also will, from time to time, like if any of the houses have any questions or something that might be outside of the scope of what they have going on, they might call Devin for some insight because he's got experience as far as living in an Oxford house as well.
Thank you. That's all I
Okay.
have for you.
Okay. Are we done, Steve?
Unless anybody, members of the council have any questions.
And they'll have a chance, Mr. Poland, in a couple minutes to return, and so if you can stay, Leaf, that would be good.
Sure,
Oh, yeah, I'll stay.
no problem. Why don't we have Devin come up and talk about Oxford House Escape?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Go ahead, proceed.
Yeah, I'm Devin Coates. I'm the community outreach worker for Oxford Houses here in the Brookings area. I cover the northeast section of South Dakota, so my area would be Aberdeen, Watertown, Brookings. Kind of just a short summary of what my job is I'm here to cultivate leadership in the houses. I'm here to find landlords. I'm here to create bonds and experience with community partners while maintaining the house for accountability and to make sure that everybody is running smoothly and be the buffer between community partners and Oxford House.
And why don't you give us an overview of what it's like to live in an Oxford House on a day-to-day basis?
So living in an Oxford House on a day-to-day basis for me consisted of learning how to mature in my active addiction. I was very reliant upon others. And in my experience, being in an Oxford House has taught me how to be responsible, has gave me purpose in my life, has given me something that I want to work forward to. And on the day-to-day, it just consists of putting yourself out there, getting out of your bubble, creating conversation with people. Even if you don't drink coffee, wake up and have a cup of coffee with the members of your house. Come up with ideas of things to do in the community, bowling, bingo, AA, NA, and just being a different person than the person that you never made it to be in your addiction.
Okay. You talk about community partners. Why don't you tell us about community partners?
Yeah, so some of the relationships I have right now in the community with my community partners is I've been working with parole extensively and creating a network for people that are coming into Brookings through Teen Challenge, either not completing or wanting a different route of recovery and making sure that they have a home to go to. I also work on a day-to-day basis with Brookings Behavioral Health. I encourage my guys in my houses to not get complacent when they get out of treatment or they're getting out of prison or they're coming in off the streets. I tell them that this isn't a permanent solution, this is a now solution, and that you have to continue your recovery by seeking help without working with community partners and social groups then we often become complacent and we don't develop our recovery any farther. So I work with parole, I work with probation. I've been doing work with drug court. I also do work with, like I said, behavioral health, Salvation Army. Some of the members rely upon Salvation Army to get their first little rent paid while they're looking for a job. So I've created partnerships with them. I've created partnerships with other people who are interested in creating suicide awareness housing here in Brookings that wanted to pick my brain about how to go about operating a nonprofit. I also have created community partners with realtors, our landlords. I'm out there trying to let people know that there's people around and we're here to try to be a positive influence on the community.
Okay, why would it be beneficial therapeutically to have eight residents in the house?
Yeah, so to have 8 residents in a house, it's fulfilling, not only to you because we keep what we have by giving it away, but AA and NA is also a selfish program. So people get confused on what that means and you really don't understand it unless you're in a group housing situation, and the more people that you have in a house, you can understand what they're telling you when you're going to meetings is that you can only keep what you have by giving it away, and there's people in those houses that aren't at the level of recovery that you're in, and so you become a beacon to them, you become a mentor. Once you're in recovery long enough, you become a sponsor. Once you become a sponsor, you become someone better. And then when you look back at that and you say, wow, well, I remember when I was the first guy there, and then there was 8 other guys, and they told me to keep going. They told me to keep pushing. So I would say that, 7, 8, 9, 10 people in a house, that's what gives you the ability to succeed.
Okay. Mr. Moore, you have any questions?
Devin, are you able to address the number of occupants at this house currently?
Yes, before it was said to be 8, but at 312 8th Ave, there's 6 people there.
And how long has that been the case?
That's been the case since July, and the reasoning of that is with the other house, which I assume is the other case, or whatever. With the way it's set up, we have to make a deadline. So in order to teach the members the responsibility of paying their bills with an equal matter and teaching them how to operate the house and hold their officer positions, they have to learn, how much is rent, how to divide that amongst 6 guys, 7 guys, 8 guys. So the fewer the people in a house, the more expensive it is for everybody to live there. So it's been since July. We decided to do it jointly through both of the houses, even though the Brookings house, it put Brookings house in compliance to go down to 6. So we said, well, we'll put Escape at 6, the 312 8th Avenue, to create an equal number of beds amongst both houses, and they can financially support each other what shortages they would have with rent going up in the meantime of being responsible and continuing to pay their bills on time.
Do you track the turnover rate for the houses?
I don't track the exact numbers. I can say, on a month-to-month basis, it varies dramatically. I can say that I probably have about 4 members that have been in the house for a year or longer. We've only been here in Brookings for, I think, 1.2 years, and I've had a member here that's been here from the beginning who's here tonight. But I would say, on average, there's probably about 1 relapse a month. And when people relapse, what we do is we offer them assistance. We always tell them, we won't take you to a hotel, we won't take you to a liquor store. What we'll do is we'll take you to detox or a family member's house, because we won't contribute to them continuing to go down the slide. And a lot of the reason of that is in this area of Brookings and Aberdeen, there is no homeless shelters. There is nowhere for anyone to go who doesn't have a home to go to, unless you get into Watertown and then Sioux Falls. So we also offer them ride to a homeless shelter if they don't have family or refuse detox. We make sure that they get somewhere.
And is there an average length that someone is a resident? Is that a metric that you track?
There's not a individual house or town average, but Oxford House as a whole, we have a 76% likelihood of people to stay in recovery and sober if they stay for a year or longer. And that's through the DePaul University.
Thank you.
Did you have any more questions, Steve?
I don't have any further
no.
questions. Mr. Poland, can you continue briefly?
Yes. Devin, you said you had a member of the House with you.
Yeah.
What, if he could step forward and just identify himself and just give a brief discussion or description of how the House has benefited him.
Yep, he's coming up right now. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Cameron LaRush. Being in an Oxford House helped me greatly. I mean, I come from reservation, and reservation is small. There ain't nothing like compared to an Oxford House. An Oxford House helped me. It's been helping me. I've seen it help a lot of people. And you know, we do things on our own. We do things to help one another. With that, you know, it's like almost like a big brother thing. I mean, you get one that falls, you just don't step over him. You pick him back up, and you make sure he's okay. You know, I can't say enough about an Oxford House. If it wasn't for an Oxford House, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I'd probably be on the reservation again, you know, doing my daily drinking or whatever. Oxford House is there for us addicts, us alcoholics, and it's a place of comfort. It's a place where I could actually call my home that I've never ever had. It's a place where I could actually go to a fridge, make a sandwich if I wanted to. I could have clean clothes every day. And without the Oxford House, I don't know, like I said, I don't know where I would be. I would probably just be another body in the world. As far as, you know, they don't require you, they don't push you to go to AA, NA. They let you work at your own pace. They let you do what you have to do, whether I'm usually at behavioral health, or I'm at the AA building, or, you know, I'm doing something positive for the community, whether it's going to the library or showing another person the ropes to help him or her to succeed. Yeah, I mean, the first time I've ever had a lady call me and ask me, you know, what is an Oxford House? And I told her about it, and she said, well, you know what? I want what you have. And I was like, you know what? You go to these AA meetings and stuff, and that's exactly what the big book says. It says, you know, it's what we got. We have to give it away. I mean, it's a way to prosper, so to speak. I've always hung on to this. Reverend Martin had said this to me, and it still sticks with me today, and that's why I'm here. He said, you know, when you work your 12 steps, he says, you don't 1 through 3, you give your heart to the Lord. You let him take it. 4 through 11, you clean house. You clean everything out of you. You put everything back on the table. You ask for forgiveness. And 12, you help others. So I cannot say enough about an Oxford House. I mean, I love it, and I would give it I would point anybody to an Oxford House that needed the help, because it has helped me. I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Poland, can you bring your presentation to a conclusion briefly?
Sure. Do you want to, why don't I do Mr. Wainwright after we finish with the other application?
Unmuted.
Since he can address both of those. So I just want to thank you for coming forward and talking about your experience. I don't know if Mr. Moore has any questions for him.
Yeah. Would it be possible for Mr. Wainwright to speak at this time, since we'll...
if you want, sure.
So we can address each one of these separately.
I just thought we'd do Mr. Wainwright at the second house, since you could wrap up both of those. But if you want to hear from him now, that's fine.
Yeah, I think just in the interest of time, we do need to keep moving along, so if he can make his comments briefly.
Okay. Mr. Wainwright, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about your background, and then talk about the therapeutic benefits that 7 and 8 residents would receive from living together under the Oxford House model.
Gladly. Good evening, everybody. My name is Andrew Wainwright. And I am a behavioral health expert, and I've been providing expert witness testimony for recovery residences for a dozen years, both for Mr. Poland and for other attorneys coast to coast in matters regarding reasonable accommodation for Oxford House and other recovery residences. My background in behavioral health spans all areas of substance use disorder, from detox to primary residential to recovery residences to Alcoholics Anonymous. So I have a pretty good understanding of the role that sober living or recovery residences play in the recovery of individuals struggling with substance use disorder. And dollar for dollar, I think it's the single most efficacious spend in the medical spectrum that we have as a treatment tool for substance use disorder. To Mr. Poland's question regarding the reason that we recommend 8 to 12 individuals, usually when we're talking about Oxford houses and reasonable accommodation in family neighborhoods, the goal is to have individuals moving from what would be isolation, the state of being ill in the disease, to a state of community. And we have found that the best way to do that is to return them to family neighborhoods so that they can grow and build community like a family. And this is a model that's been around for a long time. To give a little history, going back to 1905, we were treating TB patients and for physical health, and they found that between 8 and 12, the average of 10 was the right number for that group. Out of that grew a group therapy practice example, which has been picked up by CMS and understood for 100 years, which says that between 8 and 12 helps manufacture critical mass in a group therapy group. Starting in 1935, Alcoholics Anonymous built their own model, tested it, improved it with the same outcome, that between 8 and 12 is the right number of people for a small group for Alcoholics Anonymous. And lastly, Oxford House, starting in 1975, has been refining and improving this model till today with the same outcome, that if we take a single-family home and we're able to put people into it, somewhere between 8 and 12 is the right number, because if we had an apartment building with 2 people, it's too few, and above 12 becomes too many and unmanageable. But somewhere in that 10-person range, we're able to manufacture a critical mass of recovery. We're able to manufacture structure, accountability, community, hope. We're able to minimize isolation. We're able to put people around other people so they can have the experience of what it's like to be in recovery. And the reason for the variation in the number, the average of 10, I believe that, and one of the Oxford House folks can speak to this, but I believe the Oxford House Charter says they can't issue a charter with any less than 6 people to a house. And the reason for that is that's the very least number of people we can have to try and effectively manufacture critical mass. And understanding that logistics and consistency are a big part of running a successful house. And I'm sure Leif and Devin and these guys who are involved in running Oxford House will tell you that there's occasional fluctuations in the census, and that whether people are drinking their way out or they're graduating out or they have medical issues, that the number is going to go up and down. And manufacturing or understanding that the fluctuation in the census is part of the program leads us to say, can we average it out at 10? So it's not a static number, like we have 6 apartments and we want to fill 6 beds. We want a critical mass average that will allow us to either gain or lose someone on any given day and still have a working group leader.
Thank you. Can you talk about what the therapeutic benefit is and how having, in this particular house, 8 individuals would ameliorate the effects of substance abuse disorder?
Yeah, and I touched on this a minute ago, this idea that this is a disease of isolation, right? I think the idea for substance use is that people go to bars and drink and that it's a community event, but I think when you get to the late stage chronic alcoholism and serious drug addiction, you're going to find that it's a disease of isolation and of loneliness. And the right cure for that is we need to repatriate people. We need to put them back into the world. We need to give them friends. We need to manufacture the semblance of a family. We need to teach them how to live as citizens in the world as they want to live as recovering individuals. And, how and when these guys in Silver Spring, Maryland in 1975 discovered it, California will debate that they did it first. But for the moment, Oxford House holds the prize that these guys found that if we rented a house together and we got together and we said we're going to do this in an egalitarian manner, we're going to all be in together, we're going to share the expenses, we're going to share the load of responsibility, we're going to share the accountability and transparency that we're going to bring to one another's lives in such a way that it will support each and all of us in a way that will foster and grow our recovery. So in the medical world today, we don't have a ton of CTP codes that support long-term recovery for a chronic condition. The medical world treats chemical dependency as an acute issue, and it's billed accordingly, which is erroneous. And much of the lack of long-term outcomes is due to that. It's a CMS issue and a CPT billing issue. So that being the case, these guys worked around that, and they said, well, if the system, if healthcare isn't going to pay for us to get well, we're going to find a way to get well. And the Oxford House model is a product of that thinking, that we're going to find a way to come together to manufacture our own recovery, support one another to such a place where we feel that we can independently launch each other out into the world to either start our own family, start our own business, prosper and grow.
Thank you. Mr. Moore, do you have any questions?
Mr. Wainwright, I do have a couple questions for you. There's been testimony tonight that this house at 312 8th Avenue has been operating with 6 residents, and one of the residents said that he thinks it's been a great program for him. I assume it's not your testimony that this program is not successful because it has less than 7 or 8 residents.
No, that's not my testimony. I believe that the Oxford House Charter says that they cannot effectively run an Oxford House with less than 6 people, and the minimum requirement is 6. So in their model, at the number 6, they can begin to generate some critical mass, and run a working house. If you're asking me, in my expert opinion, I believe a few more, if we got to 8 or 10, would make a more robust house and a more robust foundation for recovery. But at 6, according to Oxford House, it's still capable to do that, but I don't believe they'll issue a charter for less than that.
And do you personally know how the number 6 was arrived at by the Oxford House in its charter?
I think it dates back to all of our experience in behavioral health and with group therapy practice. This idea that if we're going to put individuals in a circle, in a room with chairs to talk about our issues, that with fewer people, you stand out more and people are more hesitant to share. In a larger group, to 14 to 16, there's too many people. The allotted time from CMS for the group therapy practice time is 50 minutes, so you need to be able to get the right number of people in under that limit. So we got to remember all of this started, really back after the end of the First World War, where folks were coming home on boats, and these guys had shell shock, and they began to order them in groups of 10 to begin to talk about their experiences in the war as they made their way back across the Atlantic. So we have over 100 years of sort of refining what the right numbers are, and everyone had sort of from all these different areas agrees that, roughly if you put 10 people in the room, plus or take 2, you're going to have a good working group.
Your resume speaks to your ability to testify to the importance of living in a family neighborhood. And what you've been talking about before is the importance of the number of residents in the house. Are you able to speak to the relationship between those two things, and is one more important than the other?
I believe that they are different but equally important. I think we have a long history of differencing others, probably not just in the United States, but certainly we do here. We're afraid of otherness, whether that's in any sort of different way in society, whether you're not tall enough or you're the wrong color or you don't have the right job. We tend to believe that we're going to put those people over there, and the traditional trope is on the other side of the tracks. So, we create ghettos for those people that are different than where perhaps you and I would want to live, and it's different by our economic circumstances. And that has not been proven to be a useful tool to combat substance use disorder and to help people recover, because these people already are filled with shame and guilt about the actions that they've committed to their families and their friends. They've hurt the ones that they love, and they're looking to be accepted back into a society that they have greatly missed. And the easiest and most efficacious way to accomplish that is to start over. And to start over means we're going to be born again, just as if parents are going to raise up a little toddler inside of a house and he's going to grow and have his own room and go to high school and go off to college. Much the same model applies in the Oxford House, is that the older guys take care of the younger guys, or the older women take care of the younger women, and we raise each other up in a family circumstance. And in order to do that and mimic that most effectively, we need to do that in a family neighborhood, so that when we step out the door and go to the bus stop, we're doing it with other people from other families up and down the street. If we take the Oxford House and we put it across on the other side of the tracks where the mining concern is and the other unwanted things that we keep outside of city limits, the message that we're sending to those people is that you're not worthy, you're not good enough to live next to us. And I think there's a number of fair housing laws and others that would tell you that not only is it illegal, it's just immoral, right? I think we have to love each other and believe that this disease is an equal opportunity destroyer. And we tend to look at addicts and alcoholics as sick people, right? They're the person that lives under the bridge, the guy in the long overcoat. They're going to be dangerous. They're going to harm our children. But what gets forgotten is that these were somebody's children at one time. I was somebody's, son. And I certainly, made the pilgrimage to the bottom and then back up. And I think that if you ask any of these folks that have been through the program, that's going to be their story. They were somebody's son or daughter at one time. and they long to be again. And the easiest path to do that is to put them back in a family neighborhood and treat them as if they're worthy.
Mr. Poland, can you bring your presentation to a conclusion, just in the interest of time?
Yes, let me make a couple of closing remarks here. Thank you, Wayne. And I want to start with the last question Mr. Moore asked. Why is it necessary for Oxford House to be in residential neighborhoods? Mr. Wainwright touched on it, but I can tell you that it was the foundation of Oxford House, the founders of Oxford House, felt that by placing Oxford houses in residential neighborhoods, it would A, raise the self-esteem of the members, B, in many instances, get away from what were known as open-air drug markets, but from areas that street drugs were readily available. And it also because the Oxford houses and the residents are responsible for the upkeep.
Sorry to interrupt, but we're having difficulty hearing you. Can you try again?
Yeah. Let me. Hopefully this is better. The concept was to put good houses in good neighborhoods because it would raise the self-esteem of the members. Since one of the underlying principles of Oxford House is to take total responsibility for the upkeep of the house, it often, from our experience, became a point of pride that oftentimes the Oxford House was the best kept house on the block. I can tell you all kinds of stories about where Oxford House residents became willing to shovel snow for neighbors, rake leaves, help with other things. I can tell you the story of the house, one of the very first houses in the District of Columbia, where the house had been there for 30 years, and the neighborhood threw up a street party for them. So it's and as I said before, one of the other underlying principles was to have good housing away from drug markets, and as Mr. Wainwright explained, be able to get up in the morning, go to the bus, ride the bus to work, come home at night, and take care of everything. Like I said, all the residents are required to take care of the house. They do chores. They get graded on their chores. So the reason that we want more than 6, and I'll try to be brief here, is as you heard the Oxford House representatives discuss, each house has 5 elected officers. They got a president, a secretary, a treasurer, a comptroller, and what's called a chore coordinator. So if you have 6 people, that leaves 1 person without responsibility. We know, and we just had a national election, we know that democracy works better when you have bigger numbers. And by having 7 or 8, or, we're not asking for 12, but if you take up to 12, you have democracy works better. That way you don't have bullies in the house, you don't have cliques forming, issues can be decided on a democratic basis. So part of the reasoning is not to have a system where people are felt left out. It's one of the reasons why the elections are held every 6 months, so that nobody maintains power, so to speak. And that is one of the underlying concepts and why it's necessary to have more than 6. The issue of loneliness is a deadly issue in the recovery community. You can hear testimony and stories in all 12-step groups about people sitting around and their own worst enemy is themselves. And without any support, someone sitting in their room, without anybody checking in on them, someone to talk to, will start thinking their deepest, darkest thoughts and think, it's okay if I go out and use because nobody will ever find out. And we don't want that in Oxford House. And that's why it's important that we have 2 people per bedroom in order to keep an eye on one another and to report that, behavior that would, that's an indicator of relapse or or potential relapse. So as you have heard from our residents and from our employees, everyone keeps an eye on each other. People die who don't have a supportive system. From my understanding is that there are no other recovery houses in Brookings, and this is, and the Oxford House is a wonderful opportunity for people who need safe, sober housing to get their lives back together. And with that, we can move on to the next house.
Thank you. James Moore has a question for you, Stephen.
Sure.
Mr. Poland, could you just clarify what the request is? Is it to waive the definition of the family definition in the ordinance without a limitation, or is it to waive it with respect to a particular number? And if so, what is the number? You mentioned 8 tonight, but your application says 7. Can you just clarify that, please?
Well, then I've gotten the applications confused because I know on one application, and I thought we were talking about, let me pull it up here. I thought we were talking about, I thought Oxford House, I thought the one on 8th Avenue was for 8, but if it's for 7, that's what the request is.
Okay, and so just to be clear then, the request for this house is 7.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
And if I've confused anybody, I apologize.
Next, we're going to turn to public comment, and would there be members of the public that would like to approach the microphone to speak? And please state your name and then you may proceed.
Thanks, Steve. I'm Cara Bianchi Rossi. I live in Brookings. I am a resident at 816 4th Street. I have lived at this address now for over 10 years, and my family, we have 3 people. I also own a rental home on this block at 317 9th Avenue as well. This spring, myself, my husband, and several neighbors started to notice suspicious activity in the alley behind our homes. People coming and going at all hours into the evening, lots of bikes riding around, waiting in the alley, going up to the blue house, which has now been painted white, and leaving 5 to 10 minutes later. This became a major concern for me as I have a young son, and he has his friends ride their bikes and scooters around the block and up and down the alley all the time. I ended up going to the police station to speak with an officer about the suspicious behaviors I had been seeing and let him know I had major concerns. He took my concerns seriously and said he would begin an investigation. This is when we learned that the Oxford House was operating illegally, not only at 312 8th Avenue, but also at 908 1st Street. The homeowner, Jared Gass, at this time did not have a rental license, meaning he had moved people into this home illegally. Had 7 people occupying this home as well, violating all Brookings City ordinances. Jared is a lawyer, and I do think he knows the ordinances in Brookings. The homeowner at 908 1st Street, Kyle Eisenberg, did have a rental license, but was still in violation of the maximum number of unrelated people in this home. This summer, I was in the alley and dumping my lawn bag, and a man approached me. He introduced himself as Richard, and he said he was living in the Oxford home and wanted to introduce himself and let people know that he had a lot of skills in plumbing, etc., and would help anyone if they needed. He was really kind and a very nice person. He also let me know that how the Oxford House worked. He stated that the residents are randomly drug tested for drugs or alcohol, and if they test positive, they must be out of the home within 15 minutes with all of their belongings. He stated that he himself told the Oxford House that he didn't want this to be a Brookings problem, so he would drive the residents who had been kicked out to the homeless shelter in Sioux Falls. After he explained this, I realized that this is why I had seen so many people in and out of the home over the last several months. If I had to guess, I would say there would be at least 30 people that have lived in this home in the one by me on 8th Avenue. He explained this, and I had not seen Richard or his car in several months, so I don't know now where the residents are going once they leave. I called and also spoke with a young man at 908 First Street to learn more about the Oxford homes. He said they do interviews for new incoming people. They pay $165 a week, which is, the math is around $660 a month per person, or $5,200 of income a month for Kyle Eisenberg at that property, and have to pay 2 weeks up front. He told me that, oh, okay, 3 minutes is up. Thank you.
Another member of the public? Get you next.
Hi, my name is Molly Richter, and I live near 312 8th Avenue. 3 years ago, my husband and I chose to move our family from Boston to Brookings, and before buying our home, we researched the neighborhoods. In addition, we learned about the zoning as we wanted to be in a safe, friendly, family-focused area, and we were glad to learn city zoning limited the number of unrelated tenants to 3 in a single-family home, as we didn't want to be near a rental with 6 or 8 students due to the potential issues with noise, traffic, parking, etc. Last spring, it became evident, despite the clear, well-established zoning restrictions, the single-family residence was housing at least 7 or more people. A great number of men were loitering in the front of the house and in the back along the alley, and far too many cars were parked illegally in the alley, and we soon felt a shift in the neighborhood. My young daughter had previously enjoyed free rein to ride her bike across the street, meet her friends, ride scooters around the block, but the fact that an ever-changing population of men was flowing through the house made me and other parents no longer feel safe giving our kids the freedoms they had previously enjoyed. 312 8th Avenue was being used as a flop house with men moving in 1 week and out the next. There were some, like Richard, who stuck around longer, but it was a great amount of transition. And was not giving the impression of a single-family home or of a stable solution. We learned about the Oxford House, watched the residents change from week to week. This group has such a high turnover rate, there's no way it should be considered a single family, and our city zoning has been in place to avoid such transient and unlawful use of a home. My children know when a resident has failed a drug test or is moving out. We see residents ride their bikes down the block to the police station. We see men riding their bikes around and around the neighborhood like the kids used to do. There's no justification for special accommodations. As this house was established, despite our clear zoning, the residents of the neighborhood in Brookings have expectations and the right to see our zoning enforced. We've already invested a great deal of money in our home, invested time in building friendships in our neighborhoods, and welcoming, we have incredibly welcoming neighbors. Like as Kara said, we met Richard, we've met some other residents. It wasn't the individuals necessarily that we're taking issue with, it's the city zoning. It was well established, and this is not an approved use for this neighborhood, and the impact that it has on the neighborhood has involved all the problems that we have zoning for. The zoning, we have traffic issues, we had parking issues, we had just kind of noise and disturbances. We chose a safe, quiet, stable neighborhood, and the impact of this group violating zoning has been felt by our kids who don't feel safe playing outside, by the residents who have countless bikes riding up and down the alley, men peeing in the backyard during family barbecues, yelling hysterically while being arrested and brought down to the ground while other neighbors are having a barbecue in their backyard. Eventually, the value of our investment is going to be impacted as well. The only reasonable accommodation is for the city council to agree that no accommodations are necessary.
Sir?
Hello, my name is George Eust. I own property near 908, and up to a month ago, I lived right across the street from 312. I just am concerned about I'm opposed to it, but mainly because of years ago with this 3-person unrelated that came into effect years ago, mainly because of the traffic, the noise, the the people, more people than 3 unrelated in a household. A lot of it was to do with the SDSU students, but I think that's worked out well. I think anytime you get 8, 9, 10 people into a house, there's going to be more traffic, more noise, more problems, whether it's 8 kids, 8 students, 8 construction workers, or 8 of this group. I think it's just too many people in one house. These are nice neighborhoods. I think we should keep them that way. And if they choose to live there with 3 people max, like we all are doing, I think that's fine. But you go over that, and I think it's wrong. Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Sir?
This is speaking on behalf of both properties, right? Or is this solely on 312? 312 next time. Okay, we're going to do 908 next?
Yes.
Okay, I'll wait.
Sir?
My name's Neil Miller. I'm a Brookings resident. I think the zoning regulations are in place for a reason, and if Oxford House thinks the most important thing is having a large number of individuals in the house, they should find a residence that meets that zoning. If finding a residential family neighborhood is the most important thing, then they should find residences that are appropriately sized for our current zoning restrictions.
Thank you. Any other member of the public wishes to speak?
Tom Bozade. I've lived just north of 312 8th Avenue for 47 years. My children all grew up here. They have not lived here for 20 years now, but of course we have 13 grandchildren that visit regularly, as they all live within an hour of our home. People have moved out, moved in, passed away, and new folks have moved in. We love this neighborhood and the people that live here. We have redone this home at least 5 times, mostly to expand and improve. We went up, we went out, and finally we moved one house behind us so we could build a garage. Our children, now our grandchildren, have spent hours playing with friends, visiting neighbors, going around the block again and again. It has been a super place to live and thrive with no worries. Almost all of our neighbors have invested large sums to improve and enhance their homes. About 8 months ago, the house behind my garage was being remodeled and rumored to become a rental. At some point later on, there were suddenly cars, trucks, and other forms of transportation and people living in the house. It soon got busy and busier. After calling about what was happening, we found out there was no city license and there were far more tenants than were legally allowed. Beth and I and our neighbors were alarmed. I told Beth to be very careful as cars were parking in the alley while they went inside and out. One evening she went to the library and backed into a running car directly in the alley behind her door. I knocked on the door, no one answered, although I could see them inside. So I called the police. They came and made contact, but I never again heard from anyone. I assumed that the landlord took care of the problem, but I do not know for sure. There was quite a bit of damage to the car door. Since then, things have been more focused the last month or so, 6 weeks. All the cars have been removed to make things look quiet and sane. It's pretty difficult to believe our homes and our way of life have been compromised. The last months that we've been waiting for this night to happen, it's just uncanny how it feels. And I'm also a landlord, and I think we need to keep our zoning where it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public wishes to speak?
Good evening. I am Jared Gass. I'm the owner of the property. I've got 2 perspectives for you for your consideration. One, as a former criminal defense attorney here in town, Had a private practice here in town for about 12 years, and during that time I was primarily a criminal defense attorney. I also spearheaded, along with Judge Howard, she asked me to start the drug court, so I was a criminal defense attorney on the drug court for about 6 years, I believe, from its inception until I shut my practice down 3 years ago. During that time, not everyone is successful in drug court. It's a very tough program, a very hard program. Far and away, the two pieces that make people successful in drug court are, number one, stable housing, far and away, and number two, a stable job. Oxford House, in my opinion, manages the first very effectively here in town with stable housing, very effectively. I understand the not in my backyard arguments that you're hearing. You're going to hear that from anybody in the community. It's not going to be unique to this location. So that's point number one. From my experience as a drug court attorney, stable housing is a must for people in the community that are struggling with drugs and alcohol. Number two, as the owner of the house, I've had zero issues. No issues. I've had regular communication with Devin, who you spoke with earlier, who spoke to you earlier. I've had no issues. There was a Richard that was mentioned. I've had contact with him. Very nice gentleman. My experience as an owner of the house has been nothing but good. Certainly I don't live in the neighborhood, so I can't speak to that. But my experience as an owner has been good. So those two perspectives. It's very effective at giving these individuals stable housing. As an owner, I have not had any issues. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Would there be, yeah?
Hi, I'm Deb Dominiak. Lived in Brookings for almost 50 years, I guess, probably as long as Steve. And
Deb, could you bring the mic down a little bit so we can?
not only do I want to speak to you, but I want to speak to all these great people in recovery. It's not about them. I mean, hats off to them for recovery. This is a money-making business in an R2 neighborhood. And we own rentals also, and it'd be great to put 8 people in there. So who else is going to do that in town? And as I sit here and listen and they say they have to take them to Sioux Falls, why don't we have that in Brookings, a place for them to go? And we are empathetic, very empathetic. We have Teen Challenge that's been here for years. They're very effective, they're nice people. And so I just think, I feel bad for these people to feel like they're the problem, because they're not. It's the money making $5,000 a month. What other rental? Why wouldn't I do it too? And we have them. How many can we have in town? So I guess the main thing is to not have these people think they're the problem. It's the ordinance, it's not being followed, and it's a money-making business, way more than I'd rather charge $5,000 than $800 a month. Who wouldn't? I just think that's quite, as a community, why didn't we get that done before these people feel bad? I think it's ridiculous.
Thank you. Would any member of the public, we should allow anybody else that...
Steve, I have to clear the record. It's not $5,000 a month. It's a single-family home. I charge $2,000 a month like I would with any other house.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Would any member of the public have any questions to raise with the representatives of the Oxford House?
Steve, I wanted to speak myself before any questions.
That'd be fine, Tim.
I just want to go through this application a bit. Question 3 was asked to describe the burden caused.
Can you identify yourself for
I'm sorry.
the record?
Tim Hogan, and I'm an attorney in Brookings. I represent a number of the neighbors concerning both of these houses. When I'm looking at the Oxford House questionnaire, they're asked a number of questions about what is the burden, and they push that back on the city and say that it's the city's burden, and they're not going to answer that question. We know that's not the case, and you've been informed what the case law is on that and what their burden is. As far as why it's necessary, they've used the same answer twice. It's necessary for Emilia ameliorate the effects of substance use disorder. They're using those words right from case law. That's the only reason they've cited in this entire application why this is necessary, for the effects of substance use disorder. And again, I would point out on page 3, they made a misstatement in that they say that this is a 6-bedroom house. They submitted a drawing with a 4-bedroom house. On question 4, they use the same wording on why this is necessary. They've dropped the whole claim that they originally made to the city about financial, because that was dealt with in a 2024 8th Circuit Court of Appeals decision. And so that was checked. They honestly checked the box that this is not financially needed. So that's not even a consideration tonight. The only consideration is what they've put in this application. As far as the case law, the ADA, and the FHA, we all agree that local government should offer reasonable accommodations under the ADA and the FHA, but the courts, as recently as 2024 in the 8th Circuit, which we're in federal court, have stated and made it clear this is limited to modifying the rules or policies that hurt handicapped people by reason of their handicap, rather than by virtue of circumstances that they share with others, such as limited economic means. And they had the burden here to come in and establish a couple things. And what the courts look at is kind of a 3 prongs or 3 things that they have an obligation to establish. One, that their request is reasonable. And they came in
and I'll extend additional time since you're representing multiple parties.
All right. One is just that this is reasonable. 2, that it's necessary. And 3, that it allows the handicapped person equal opportunity to use and enjoy housing. I would just encourage you to look at these policies that we have. They were not designed, nor do they hurt handicapped people by reason of them being handicapped. The only argument you have, I would call it, is an opinion. They've opined. You've heard nothing other than people opining that for some reason there's a magic number. It's higher than 6. It's 8, it's 10, it's 12. Those are the numbers we heard, up to 15. And somehow that is needed for these handicapped people, but they've done nothing but opine that that is needed. They haven't established in any way met their burden of what's required here. So there's necessity, which there's also necessity, and necessity is a really high standard. It's something that is indispensable, essential, something that cannot be done without. Necessity is a high standard. They haven't established a necessity. They talk about groups getting together. That's what AA, that's what treatment. And all the statistics they throw at you are that when you're in an intensive outpatient treatment, you should have 12 to 15 people. They have no studies showing that somehow a house like Oxford House requires the city to deviate from its current zoning. In conclusion, I would just ask the city to look at what they've heard, concerns on safety, parking, traffic, congestion, noise, density. There is concerns about the impact to the surrounding area, that this request fundamentally alters the city's zoning scheme, and I think it needs to be acknowledged. Mr. Gass entered into a lease with Oxford House. We heard that the first Oxford House was 1.2 years ago. Mr. Gass sometime this year opened this Oxford House. Oxford House website for landlords makes it clear you have to comply with all local zoning. Both of these Oxford houses have chosen not to comply with local zoning, and they've come in after they've caught, and they've made arguments for months and months, affected all of these people, and now they're asking for accommodations because they got caught. Finally, if you look at the terms reasonable and necessary, they're both high standards. There's no evidence that they've established that this is necessary or reasonable, other than people's opinions that somehow it's needed. We also heard testimony that the reason they have 6 is because you need at least 6 to make this financially viable. That's really the reason they're here today. They open these houses when they can have 6 or more people in them. And the real reason we're here today is because they want these to be economically viable. They want to find landlords that will lease to them so they can operate their programs. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we're going to close the public hearing. And I'll now turn to council members and determine if you have any questions. Would there be any council members that would have questions of either representatives of the Oxford House or members of the public? Bonnie?
Yeah, this would be for Wainwright, if is he still on the phone?
Mr. Wainwright, can you hear that?
I'm still here.
All right, we have a question for you.
Okay, he had mentioned that there's 8 to 12 individuals are what's effective in group therapy sessions. You know, there are 2 houses, variants that say that, or studies that have been done to show that having 8 residents per house is more effective in reducing relapse than having 3 or a smaller number.
Sure. So let me answer your first question first. When I speak about group therapy practice, I'm using it as an exemplar of when we take people and create a small group and hope that by putting them together in a small group for a period of time, that it's going to benefit their recovery. So one example is the CPT code that allows for group therapy practice that allows for 50 minutes for that practice to happen. Another example, however different, would be an Oxford House, where we're taking the same number of people, we're putting them in close proximity so that they can live together, and they'll be together as they're getting ready to go about their day in the morning, they're together in the evenings, and they're together after dinner, and you've got the right number of people in that group to create this critical mass of recovery that we're talking about. That's what we're really working for. So it's not to actually have a group therapy session where we take 8 guys from one house and the other house, or 4 from each, put them together and have a session. It's the idea that group therapy practice happens, whether it's for 50 minutes or whether it's over the course of a year when these guys are living together, with this sort of suite between 8 and 12 people. For your second question about documentation and outcomes, yes, there's many studies, and there's one easy place to go is on the Oxford House website. There's many published studies that show over the past 40 years work that's been done to support the Oxford House model. There are many more that show the efficacy of group therapy practice and the need for between 8 and 12 individuals. I apologize, we had short time, we haven't gathered them for you tonight, but as this, or if this issue proceeds forward, I'm sure that Mr. Poland, as the attorney, will be the go-to person to organize that data for you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Council members, Tiltonburg.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. So my first question would be, in the application, it was stated that the residence has 6 bedrooms, but in the drawing, it only indicated 4. How many bedrooms does the house have?
Devin Coates Outreach. So what I think that was probably a misdraw off of what I presented. What that is that probably means 4 bedrooms with 6 people in the house. not 6 bedrooms and then 4 bedrooms. So what that, they probably just, I did a general sketch and then I sent it off and then it got redrawn up more professionally. So it was probably me putting 4 bedrooms, 6 residents, which would mean 1 double and 3 single bedrooms, which is what the Escape House is, 1 double, 3 singles.
And I don't know if Mike Struck is still in the room with us. Oh, hi, Mike, right in front of me, sorry. Would those 4 bedrooms be reflected in what our inspection showed as well? Do they qualify as 4 operational bedrooms?
So when we did the inspection, there was actually 5 bedrooms. There was 1 on the main floor and 4 upstairs. 2 of the bedrooms upstairs had egress window issues that they had to fix. They corrected those. But when we inspected, it's actually a 5-bedroom.
My next question is perhaps for Mr. Wainwright as well, a bit of a follow-up from the question that Councilmember Specker asked. You mentioned that in order to, I believe it was maybe a study that you were citing, that in order to have success in group therapy, it requires 6, but then went on to state that the facility for the Oxford House is not necessarily conducting group therapy, instead it is a group living situation. Is that correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
You are.
Okay. The next question I have is about the information that is obtained on the Oxford House website. I believe someone earlier indicated it. I myself have spent a lot of time on the Oxford House website, and I have seen the documentation that shows that Oxford House indicates houses must come into compliance with local zoning before establishing a home in that area. How does Oxford House look into zoning before establishing a home?
Who is that question for? This is Andrew Wainwright speaking.
Whoever can answer the question is for it is who it is for.
Mr. Poland, would you be able to answer that?
Sure. It's our view that presumptively, because it's our position that Oxford houses are families, that we are in compliance with zoning. Now, in certain circumstances, such as what has happened at Brookings, we are cited for violating the rule of an unrelated person, and which brings us to making the reasonable accommodation request, and the city's response to that in this particular instance was to create a reasonable accommodation process. So that's what we are going through, and through that, we will be in compliance. But everything is done on a case-by-case basis. As I've stated, we have approximately 4,000 houses across the United States. Hearings of such as what we are going through tonight are rare. They happen infrequently. So the overall majority of the Oxford houses, we don't have any zoning issues. And in this particular instance, the city has put in place a reasonable accommodation process, which we're following. So that's where we're at.
And the last question I have, obviously we're exploring providing a reasonable accommodation for individuals with a disability. However, it's my understanding that we aren't informed who lives in that house. I wouldn't necessarily expect that we be informed of every single individual that lives in the house. But it's also my understanding that the landlord is not always aware of the exact individuals living at the house, given the fluidity of the individuals living at any given time. So can a representative from the Oxford House explain how they verify that each person living in the house requires the accommodation and lives with the disability that is being accommodated for?
Well, this is Steve Poland. I can tell you, maybe Leaf or Devin can shed light on this, on these particular houses, but I can tell you that as the overall Oxford House policy is that there is a question, there is an application an individual fills out. The individual puts down whether he's an addict or an alcoholic, whether he's been to treatment. The individual is interviewed by the house. The house asks questions about their treatment, how many times they tried to get sober, what lengths they're willing to go to stay sober. And if Leif or Devin want to add on to that, they can do that. But I can also tell you, and it's also in our responses, that based on this interview process, it takes 80% of the House vote to accept a new member, so that all of the existing members are comfortable that the new member is going to be a good fit for the House and is someone who needs this type of housing. I don't recall, and I've been associated with Oxford House for over 30 years, I don't recall anyone trying to apply for an Oxford House who wasn't an addict or an alcoholic, or recovering addict or alcoholic. But if you want information about what goes on in these particular houses, I think Leif or Devin could shed some light on that for you.
And if you can be very brief.
I can. A majority of the residents that move into these houses come as references from treatment facilities, drug court, parole and probation. So, I mean, ultimately, the only stipulation that a group of individuals, if you're going to apply to move into one of these houses, is that you identify as an alcoholic or an addict. And like I said, most of our residents come directly from a treatment facility where, that's obviously the case.
Thank you. Any other council questions?
Thank you. I have several questions. One, and it's whoever wants to answer this. How was the occupants number determined for this property specifically, the requested one of 7? I know there's been several reasonings, so I'm just wondering to confirm what's been said tonight.
Devin Outreach. So if you're asking originally when we decided to lease the house, why did we decide on 7? We have a process as outreach workers and people in recovery, people that have went through the program, that when we walk through a house, we make sure that what we have is reasonable accommodations for addicts and alcoholics. Like they touched on earlier, we don't believe in body stacking. So we don't believe in putting 4, 5, 8 guys in a room and just being like, this is recovery. So where that comes from is when we walk through the house, we judge how big the room is, whether or not we could fit 2 beds in there or 1 bed. And then we go about the whole house and make that decision. And then when we approach the landlord, we let the landlord know, like, hey, this is what we could probably do if you're interested, and this is what we think we could fit, and we go about it that route.
So a follow-up, thank you for that answer, is that the testimony heard tonight is that the model is 8 to 12 with a purpose of doubling up in bedrooms. I was just wondering if you could provide some context for the difference from the model that was explained tonight to this property.
There isn't any difference. Just each house has a different setup, of course. Not all houses are built the same. Like when we were going through the square footage of the house, the square footage of the house is a very large house, but there's not very many bedrooms. So shooting for 8 to 12 people in the 312 8th Avenue would be unreasonable. As the building inspector guy has stated or whatever, just the amount of room that it would require and the amount of off-street parking that is already there and the side street parking that's on the street in the front of the house, that's what we also take into consideration as well. How can we accommodate their vehicles? How can we park them? How can they, where's the bus route? Where's the resources? How close are they? The 312 8th Avenue happens to be a block away from the courthouse, where they have drug court, where the jail is, where just everything is right there. And so that was one of the deciding factors of why I chose to seek out the house at 312 8th Ave.
Thank you. I think those are all my questions for you. The rest is directed at the city, I believe. So the first question is this current property up to codes and other safety considerations for the requested occupancy, if that was approved tonight?
Yeah, all the rental licensing requirements are up to standards.
For the requested occupancy, if that was passed?
It would for a single family.
Okay. Okay, I think those are all my questions for you. Thank you. Okay, and then my next ones are for our city attorney. I was wondering if you could overview the kind of rationale behind implementing our current standing ordinance of the 3 unrelated individuals.
That ordinance has been in place for many years. It's ordinance section 22-374, so many years being at least 30 that I'm aware of. And the primary reason is really tied to the zoning philosophy that this is a single-family housing district, and density is a factor that the city has taken into account in developing all of its zoning ordinances. And this case, or there has been a case to the Supreme Court, which emphasized that the number of people is a relevant consideration. The number of people residing in a rental unit or in a single-family home is a relevant consideration that a city can establish for purposes of density. And density, has been upheld, and density would be the number of people that would be appropriate given the space and the zoning district that the property is located in.
Thank you. Okay, I believe I have one more question. So to the city, if the reasonable accommodation is passed at the requested occupancy, would any further inspections or check-ins have to be led by either, or by the city? Or would this operate as a regular rental property? Just wondering kind of the administrative process that would occur.
It would be appropriate to follow through with any decision that the council makes in terms of verifying continued compliance with any decision that's made. So staff would have the authority to inspect from time to time to verify the number of occupants in the residence.
Okay. I believe those are all my questions at this time.
Mr. Wendell.
Thank you, Steve. I was not intending to ask any questions, but some of the testimony this evening planted a couple of questions in my mind, so I want to ask some questions and follow up. Some of the questions I have are about the sequence of moving residents into 312 8th Avenue. And I think my first question is for Devin. Devin, you just walked us through the process you do to determine whether or not a home in our community would have the adequate space to accommodate an Oxford house. And you talked about walking through 312 8th Avenue. When did that walkthrough occur when you landed on 7 as being a good number for that address?
Devin Outreach. I would say that walkthrough probably happened in February while the house was still under construction.
You then
reconstruction.
So as of February, you'd sort of decided 7 would be an appropriate number for that address?
Right. When I originally walked through the house with Jared, I took a tally of what I thought would be able to be a good occupancy in the house. And then our process of obtaining a house takes at least a month.
Sure.
And then we also had to wait for Jared to know exactly what his finish time was going to be on the house.
Okay.
So I took that into consideration as well, while also taking the property at 908 First Street, which I've overseen since its very beginning, and how well it operated with 8, and then decided whether or not there would be too many beds available for recovery in the area, or whether or not to lower the bed rate, seeing fit for the area.
Sure. And Mr. Gass was with you on that walkthrough in February of 2024?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Then I think my next question is for Mr. Gass. So after the walkthrough occurred in February of 2024, and you and Devin sort of determined 7 was the appropriate number, when did you enter into a lease agreement with the residents that would be living in the house?
Oh, I don't recall the exact date. Probably would have been shortly after. It probably would have been after the house was completed, actually, when we entered the lease agreement. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that would have been March or April of 2024?
If I recall, probably April, closer to April.
Okay.
Yeah.
But did not, and I want to make sure I understand this piece, in April, you did not file an application for a rental license?
I don't know. I don't remember specifically when I filed that. I had communication with Sarah at the city when I knew it was going to be a rental. I'd have to review emails to figure out exact dates of when I officially applied or what those communications revealed. But off the top of my head, I don't know the exact date.
Do you recall about the time that you learned that your rental license inspection had been denied and you weren't going to get a rental license for that property?
Yeah, so it was never that I wasn't going to get a rental license. It was, we have life safety issues and we have occupancy issues. And so I dealt with the life safety issues with Sarah and Mr. Struck and their departments, and Mr. Struck mentioned the egress windows. That took some time. But ultimately concluded after a couple inspections, yeah, life safety issues were good. The occupancy issues were ongoing. And I had communication with both Mr. Brightsman and Mr. Moore in that regard in managing that process, because we knew, and Mr. Poland was involved at that time as well, and we knew that this process was going to take place. As Mr. Poland mentioned, at the time, the reasonable accommodation request was submitted. The city had no process for that. And so the city council now has a process, and we're following, jumping through those hoops. So it was never a point where I was denied a rental license. It was working through the process with the city, both with regard to the life safety issues and the occupancy issues.
Maybe to clarify, the folks that you signed a lease with, did they move into the property at 8th Avenue before you had a rental license with them?
Yes, they would have.
Okay, so they lived there and you did not have a rental license?
Correct.
Okay, thanks. I don't have any other questions for you. The last note that I would make, I did probably similar to what Councilor Tilton Byrne did, and spent a lot of time on the Oxford House website to better understand their expectations of properties and communities, their expectations of landlords. And I just want to read the line that I think Councilor Tilton Byrne was referencing, which came from the online manual, page 9, which lays out clearly the process of obtaining an Oxford house. And it says that the charter members who are looking for a suitable house should make certain that any prospective house can be occupied without violating local zoning or health and safety laws. And I think it's pretty clear in this scenario that that is not what happened. And I feel for the residents of the house that moved into that property, probably without any awareness that they were living in bedrooms that had not been approved for rental occupancy. And in fact, we're doing so in a lease agreement with a landlord that was in violation of Oxford House's own manual. Those are the only questions or comments I have.
Any other council comments?
I got one, Steve. I guess this would be for Devin. Devin, were you aware of our ordinances before you decided to lease this property knowing full well that this house wouldn't be in compliance with our ordinances?
I was not.
Let me, this is Steve Poland. Let me interject here.
Go ahead.
Anything involving the obtaining of rental licenses or any type of compliance in terms of safety codes or whatever that a landlord is required to do during the rental process, that's on the landlord. It's not on Oxford House, and it's certainly, the residents certainly shouldn't be penalized because there's been issues with either applying for a rental license or obtaining a rental license or being in compliance with whatever the inspection requirements are. So what Devin knows about those requirements, I think that, you know, the landlord is in a better position to deal with those issues. And obviously, if he's willing to enter into a rental agreement with Oxford House Escape, I believe, you know, he's implying that everything is habitable.
Thank you. Any other council questions? Okay, at this point, we're going to allow representatives of Oxford House to make a final statement. The time limit for this will be 3 minutes, if we could start the time. And Mr. Poland, you may proceed.
Thank you. I don't want to dwell on this rental issue. I want to talk about the fact that what we have here, and I don't think the city council should be penalizing the residents of the Oxford House. Oxford House goes into a community operating on a good faith basis that what it is doing is in compliance with local zoning. Many times it becomes, I'm not going to say an issue, but it comes to the forefront when there's notices of zoning violations that are issued. And from that point on, Oxford House takes steps to comply with that, including what we've done here is to make the reasonable accommodation request, and in turn the city responded by actually instituting a reasonable accommodation process, which in my view is very commendable. This is not a NIMBY issue. As far, you know, many individuals, many homeowners don't like the presence of recovering addicts and alcoholics who live within the Oxford House in their neighborhoods. The complaints that are being made here tonight are complaints that I've heard before in terms of it's changing the character of the neighborhood. There are safety issues. To my knowledge, and I've asked the city attorney for information about this, and he hasn't provided any. I don't know if any exist, but he hasn't provided any. That there aren't any issues. And what we have here is a situation where it's necessary for the Oxford House, not because of financial reasons, but because of therapeutic reasons, and you know, to be able to have 8 individuals in this house and 7 individuals in the other house. The equal opportunity would be if they did not live here, they would be homeless, they would be maybe dead, they would be on the street using, they would be living elsewhere in less desirable issues. And the real test is do we want, does the city of Brookings want Oxford House to continue to provide housing so that its residents can become responsible, productive members of the Brookings community and contribute? We have a house full of individuals who work, who are doing their best to get their lives together, and Brookings, and I believe that the city council should be applauding the efforts of the individuals and not penalize them for any missteps that may have happened for people who are not involved in the living and the therapeutic effects of living together that goes on in that house. And for those reasons, we believe that our request is reasonable and that it's necessary, and that there is an equal opportunity to use and enjoy the dwelling. And for those reasons, we're requesting that the City Council approve the reasonable accommodation application. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we will conclude the public hearing, and I'll ask council members if you have any questions of us procedurally, or if you are prepared to make a motion with respect to the request. Mr. Wendell.
I would make a motion to disapprove the request for reasonable accommodations.
Okay, do you want to call for a second?
Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Council discussion.
Council discussion on this? Councilmember Tilton Burn.
I want to first start by really commending the residents of Oxford House and the individuals that provided their testimony tonight from the Oxford House. I think the program that you've stated really is a fantastic program, and I think that the efforts that you're making and the difficulty that it is to get through addiction every day is something that is really notable, and so I commend you for what you're doing. I personally have loved ones that have dealt with this very disability, and so I can absolutely relate, not as someone who has suffered from it myself, but someone who has watched it happen. And so my thoughts are with you, and I hope that our community continues to show you support through the different resources that are available. That said, the question tonight is regarding the occupancy of a specific house, and obviously our community has zoning around all of these issues. And so as we go through this process tonight, it's about examining the facts that have been presented and that are before us tonight. And so in many notes that I've taken up here, if you could see my chicken scratch, there's a lot of little stickies up here. The only really compelling fact that I heard through the whole process sort of stated that 6 individuals was the critical mass needed for group therapy. But then we also were informed that group therapy doesn't formally take place within the home. Rather, it is a group living situation. And so for that reason, without really being proven that there is a hardship that has to be overcome based on occupancy here, I struggle to be able to say that we would be able to have 6 individuals, which I believe is the actual number being asked for here, housed within this home. I absolutely would support the program continuing on, being in compliance with zoning, which would be 3 individuals in the house. And I would also support the Oxford House looking at other potential properties where perhaps 6 individuals could be housed, such as a duplex, like many homes within our community have. So definitely would look to some of those options that might be available, but when it comes to this particular property and the zoning that we have and the facts that have been presented before us, I will be voting in favor of not passing the accommodation request tonight.
Any other comments? Councilmember Specker?
I support Holly's comments, and I do think that, I mean, I take pride in Brookings being an inclusive community. So and that relates to all types, you know, gender, sexual orientation, race, and disabilities. And I think it's important that our city do what it can to support the Oxford House. But I don't feel that I personally didn't see any evidence in the application that justified increasing the number of residents above 3. And I also couldn't find anything within the website, the Oxford website, or other publications within the therapy kind of cognitive behavioral literature I found a lot for more sort of hearsay on the group therapy numbers, but not on the group housing. So it would have been really nice to see that, and maybe Oxford House could do some sort of study to look at smaller homes versus larger occupancy homes and what relapse rates are, comparing those two extremes. But I do think that the Oxford House is a great idea. I think we need maybe more of them in Brookings, but I do think they need to meet the recommended zoning regulations. Thank you.
Councilmember Duran.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the dialogue tonight, and I do understand that we all have the best interest of all the partners represented tonight, so I appreciate everyone who has spoken. I personally do also support transitional housing, and I recognize the need nationwide and locally. I've worked in the nonprofit industry for a number of years, so I recognize that need, and I appreciate the community partnerships that were listed tonight and the encouragement of recovery. I would agree with the other council members who have spoken tonight. When I look at our housing, it is in place for traffic congestion, density, safety, noise, and other reasonings, and this ordinance that we have on our books is upheld by the South Dakota Supreme Court as reasonable. I would highly encourage the Oxford House to continue in the community and to look at other properties to adhere to their model as well as our ordinance. But for the reasoning stated in the application of finding evidence for the occupancy, I will be voting yes to deny this.
Any other comments from council? Questions? All right, please call the roll. Oh, one more time. Councilmember Chilton-Burn.
Just a clarifying statement that a yes vote is yes to deny.
Correct. Are we in the same understanding, clerk? Thank you, Bonnie. Please call the roll.
Doran,
Yes.
Niemeyer,
Yes.
Specker,
Yes.
Tiltonburn,
Yes.
Wendell,
Yes.
Avery.
Yes. Okay, with this, we're done with this one. Do we want to move on to the next public hearing?
We can proceed. Would it be appropriate to take a brief recess
We
before
certainly
the second
can.
one? I would comment that the second hearing would be an expedited process based on the comprehensive input that we've had from everybody tonight. So we will, it will be much briefer, I will say that.
All right, so let's take a break and we'll reconvene at 7:45.
Sister? Long time ago. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You know, could have burned down. That burned Come on. I'm way in the because I never parked in the parking area because I could never get out to go to work. People were wet just to get.
You kind of always lived in the neighborhood.
Mr. Poland, can you hear me? This is Bonnie Foster, City Clerk. Yeah.
She's fine. 7:45. Yeah, so at least that's what the mayor said.
I feel like that's a key. So it's like, oh, they couldn't wait to get around.
We're gonna shorten it up. Like maybe. I mean, they've already presented everything. All we need to do now is know the facts of that. Right now, there would. We'll start the meeting in 1 minute. All right, let's see if we can find our seats again. 7:45. Okay. Item 4B, public hearing and action on a request for a reasonable accommodation at 908 First Street. Item 4B is a public hearing concerning the request of Oxford House by Oxford House for reasonable accommodation for 908 First Street. Oxford House requests that the City of Brookings waive the requirements of Ordinance 22-031, which sets the maximum occupancy limits for unrelated persons residing in a single household. Oxford House asserts that their application waiver of the requirements of Ordinance 22-031 is necessary for residents to better address the effects of substance use disorder. The city attorney will conduct the meeting or the hearing and briefly explain the hearing procedures.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have Mr. Poland on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. And Mr. Wainwright, are you able to hear us?
I am.
All right, thank you. So we'll proceed with the hearing. We have substantial information that was gained in the previous hearing. I don't think that we have to repeat anything other than that which pertains to 908 First Street. So the first step will follow the original format, which would be that the city will provide a brief statement concerning city's procedures regarding 908 First Street.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, and members of the public. I won't rehash all the similar things. I'll just give you an update specific to 908 First Street. 908 First Street has been licensed as a two-family dwelling with a maximum of 6 occupants dating back to 1994. In August 24th of 2023, the city did its renewal inspection on the property. Everything passed, was compliant for a two-family dwelling, and a subsequent license was issued for a two-family dwelling up to 6 occupants. And October 7th, we did a re-inspection based upon an occupancy concern that was kind of brought about by the process that we're going through tonight, just to verify how many were occupying the property at that time, and they were compliant on that date of October 7th. All the other information, from the previous one is as far as the background of how we got here with the reasonable accommodation is still the same. But in summary, it's been a two-family dwelling since 1994 for 6 occupants, and all of our inspections throughout the course of the time, every 4 years, when the license is up for renewal, we do inspections. They met all the life safety concerns associated with our rental inspection program, and the occupancy was 6 occupants. Both in 2023 when we issued the license, and then again when we inspected in October of this year. And I'd be available for any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Poland, would you like to make a statement in regard to 908 First Street?
Yeah, let me just, I'm going to try to be brief because it's getting late. We just heard that this is a two-family dwelling. In the other application, one of the council members was talking about duplexes, two-family dwellings. This is exactly what we have here. What we're asking for is one additional resident that would effectively provide additional therapeutic support for the additional 6 members. So without going through everything that we talked about in the first case, since this is a two-family dwelling, there is not, for all intents and purposes, we're in compliance with the local zoning on this house, and what we're asking for is one additional resident.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would members of the public wish to speak?
George Hughes, I have property down the street from there. I was surprised when he just said they're asking for one more. I was under the impression that it was suitable for 6 people, and that is the city code. I don't have an objection to it being it's a duplex of 3 people, and 3 people is 6. I would ask that you keep it at 6 people. It's worked good in the past for the last many years. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Could we interject a question?
Mr. Poland, if I can just interrupt before there's additional public comment. This is James Moore. You said that the request is for 1 additional resident. The application actually says 8. Would you just clarify, please, what the request is?
Yeah, the request, yes, thank you very much. I was trying to interject. I didn't want to interrupt the gentleman who was speaking, and I appreciate you pointing that out to me, Mr. Moore, because I saw that as I finished my comments. Yes, so what we're asking for is 1 additional person per unit. So that would make a total of 8. Like as I said before, having 3 per unit is in compliance with local zoning. So as a reasonable accommodation, we're asking for 1 additional person per unit for all the reasons that we stated before. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Cara Bianchi Rossi. Again, I live at 816 4th Street. I also own a duplex at 317 9th Avenue for 10 years. I have followed all city zoning ordinances. I've never had people illegally living in my homes against the city zoning ordinances. And I was just going to say, but you clarified that on your website it does advertise for 8 people. So just to clarify that the duplex is for 6 people, and everybody in this town who owns a duplex knows that and follows that rule. And again, Kyle Eisenberg knows this and hasn't followed that rule, and it's again violating city zoning ordinances for 1.5 years. Thank you.
Any other member of the public?
I'm Vance Vogelai. I own 912 First Street, which is the adjacent property on the east side of 908. I'm a husband, a father of 2 beautiful little girls, a power lineman for the city here in Brookings, and I'm also the son of a recovering alcoholic of 16 years. I've lived firsthand through the struggles of addiction. I've seen the good and the bad and the ugly of it. I've seen what it can do to the person fighting the addiction, as well as what it can do to the families and the people that surround them. Don't get me wrong, I think fighting through recovery is a great thing, but it does not come easy, and it is a tremendous feat, and very few people in recovery do not relapse. A few statistics from the American Addiction Center's website on relapses by substance. Chances on heroin, 78%, meth, 52%, cocaine, 62%, and alcohol, 69%. Relapse is a very dangerous part of recovery due to a person's tolerance to the substance has changed while sober in recovery, and when they relapse, they tend to go back on the same dosage as when they were using. Now, from a father and a husband standpoint, I don't want this house anywhere near my family or my home. It has been a concern for the last 14 months with people constantly in and out, like you've heard on the other property. I'm not one to judge a book by its cover, but I've known very good people that have fought through recovery battle. But when my family safety comes into question, I tend to pay a little more attention to what is going on around our house and the people that surround us. Another concern I have is how does this Oxford House people pick the houses, not the residents, but the people who choose this location, because putting yourself in triggering situations for alcoholics and addicts are a huge part of relapse. And right across the street from 908 are 2 very big party houses that are occupied by SDSU students living the college life. Most weekends, First Street is lined with cars on both sides, from people occupying these parties. Oxford is setting these people up for failure by putting them close to something like that, which makes me really question the intent of recovery of these individuals, or is it just putting as many houses up just to look good and bring in more revenue? Since this property has been occupied by Oxford, the cops have been called there multiple times, and back in May, a man stumbled out of that house intoxicated. He fell down in my front yard, lost his phone, tried to crawl up, used my pickup to help himself up. It's an old farm truck. It doesn't always lock when I hit the fob. The door popped open and he proceeded to get inside my truck and sleep for 5 hours. After he got out, he wandered across the street and tried to enter the neighbor's house. They're painted kind of the same color blue, and I think he was so disoriented he didn't even know where he was going into. I just hope you guys take into consideration everything everybody said tonight, because again, it's not these people's fault. I've seen a lot of good people go through recovery, but the odds, and they've stated it, 1 relapse a month, it could potentially be dangerous to everybody surrounding them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. I'm Rick Nace. I live at 103 Maderi there, and my wife's right there. And there's a lot of college kids. We see them all the time. Young men, women. They walking up and down to the bars, and they come home late at night. Sometimes the girls are pretty intoxicated. I feel for them. Like Vance was saying, we don't need any assaults. We got lots of little children here. There's at least 6 little children living within the radius. I don't know. I think Oxford House has just their reputation here in town already. They've tried to pull the wool over your eyes several times on ordinances. And how do we know there's going to be only 6 in there? They say, or 8. How do we know? And where do you stop? Okay, I got properties right across the street, 913. I got 822nd Street. I got one on Orchard. I have Mills manage them. Mills Property manages them. I got to play by their rules. And the Mills plays by the city's rules. And something isn't right, it comes out of my pocket. I think Oxford House is really lining their pockets on this. You got 6, 8 guys living in a house, and a bedroom is $400. 8 guys, that's $3,200 for that house. That's pretty good. I wish I could get that out of mine. So, thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on. Mr. Moore, do you have any questions at this point?
I do not. Thank you.
Council members now have a question. Yes, Ms. Becker.
Yeah, I'm confused by the floor plan of the house on First Street. It shows 1 kitchen downstairs with 2 bedrooms and then 3 bedrooms upstairs. Is that
it's not
one
the
unit?
it's not the full floor plan. They didn't submit the floor plan for the basement. The basement is 1 unit, and then the main floor and upstairs is another unit. So they didn't submit a floor plan that showed all 3 levels of the house. The main floor and upstairs is 1 unit. The basement's a separate unit.
Okay, that answers it. Thanks.
Yep.
Any other council members' comments or questions? Seeing none, Mr. Poland, would you like to make a final statement?
Yes, let me address a couple of issues that were raised by members of the public. And I think this would be good information for everyone. Oxford House Inc. doesn't receive any money from the rental of these houses. The agreement is between the house, Oxford House, in this case, Oxford House Brookings, and the landlord. Oxford House Inc. doesn't receive any money. Oxford House Inc. is not making any money off of this. Our goal, our mission is to place find good residential housing for recovering addicts and alcoholics. And for the reasons I stated earlier, placing them in residential neighborhoods is important. Our residents don't use, they don't drink. If they want to go to a college party, they can go to a college party, as long as they don't drink or use drugs or get into trouble there for that matter. That's, you know, but if they relapse, they're out of the Oxford House. It's simple as that. As I said before, this house with 3 and 3, as it's presently configured, is in compliance with the local zoning. We're asking for 1 additional house member for each side of the duplex. And we believe that this would enhance the recovery process of the Oxford House residents and would benefit the community at large. Thanks.
Thank you. Would council members have a motion to make at this time to conclude this matter?
I would make a motion
Wendell?
I would make a motion to disapprove the request for reasonable accommodation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any comment by council or additional questions?
I think it would be appropriate if there are comments or any clarification that you have with respect to this motion, since it is a separate hearing, if you could express any comments that you have to support your motion.
Councilmember Tilton Burn.
So similar to the comments I made during the previous hearing, I would just like to say first and foremost that I commend the individuals that are living in this facility and really do wish them well on their journey for recovery and encourage them to continue to use the resources in our community. But again, similar to the comments I made previously, due to zoning and some of the testimony that we've heard tonight, I personally don't see justification for extending the number of individuals in this property beyond 6, especially knowing that there was comment made in the previous hearing that stated that 6 is a successful number. So I feel like in this particular instance of having a duplex, we have a great example of a location that can house 6 individuals, stay in compliance with zoning, and hopefully still reach the goals of the Oxford House as well.
Any other questions from comments? Councilmember Wendell.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just make a comment about the process this evening. I appreciate that we have a reasonable accommodations request process in place. I think that's important when we think about safe housing opportunities in the community and an opportunity to hear requests of this nature. So I am glad that this process is in place. Certainly the deliberation that I'm going through tonight is focused on the occupancy in our existing ordinance. And I was looking for evidence that increasing the occupancy would lead to better outcomes or would be essential to provide housing for folks looking to live in these properties. And frankly, the Oxford House did not provide evidence. They did not provide the studies that they said existed, and they submitted applications that were riddled with errors and hard for us to even follow the basic request. So I don't feel like if we're zeroed in on occupancy as the question to answer tonight, I would have to say that no, evidence has not been provided that increased occupancy is necessary in this particular case. I was not deliberating about the mission of an environment like an Oxford House as stated, or the testimony that was provided from folks this evening that are living in an Oxford House environment. I was narrowly focused on the occupancy issue.
Any other questions, comments from council? Before I ask for the roll, I want to clarify our motion. The motion, if we were to vote yes, is to deny the request for reasonable accommodation. Please call the roll.
Niemeyer,
Yes.
Specker,
Yes.
Tilton Burn,
Yes.
Wendell,
Yes.
Avery,
Yes.
Dorn.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that completes our 2 public hearings. And let's start our stated meeting right at 8:10. so people can get their ducks in a row as far as our staff, and people can leave without causing more grief on the additional meeting.
That leaves for 6. Yes. Well, my brother died of opioid overdose, so it's me.
Are you ready for this? We'll start the meeting in 1 minute. Or I should say, we'll resume the meeting in 1 minute. All right, I lied. Let's get started. It's 8:09. We can do this. All right, open forum. Is there any member of the public who wishes to address the council on any item that's not listed on tonight's agenda? Please come forward.
Hi, everyone. Is this on? Okay. I'm Kirsten Jesdahl. I am the Executive Director of Downtown Brookings, the nonprofit organization that is dedicated to the growth and prosperity of our downtown neighborhood. I am also the owner of a retail business and 2 buildings on Main in the downtown neighborhood. On October 27th, the City Council passed a resolution adopting the Downtown Brookings Master Plan after nearly a year of work and over 2,800 people providing public input. We are aware that there is a petition being circulated to bring the city's acceptance of the master plan to a public vote, and I am here to ensure people get accurate and truthful information regarding the plan, as the petition, unfortunately, is causing a lot of misinformation to spread. Downtown Brookings has been the heart of the community for nearly 150 years, and the Downtown Brookings Master Plan provides ideas to ensure our community continues to thrive into the future. By suggesting ways to spur investment into our historic buildings to maintain safety and longevity of our most beloved spaces, by providing ideas for the outer edges of our district to increase housing and usability, by exploring the idea of a public gathering space and presenting thoughts on hypothetical locations, by advising on updates for walkability and parking improvements, and by encouraging the promotion of downtown Brookings as a destination to attract visitors and residents, and lastly, by suggesting ways to fund services, programs, and basic maintenance for the neighborhood that business and building owners expressed interest in during the feedback process. What I did not say, and what the Downtown Master Plan does not do, it does not impose a property tax increase on anyone, anywhere. It does not force any buildings to be torn down, and it does not strong-arm any business out of the neighborhood. The plan is a 94-page document full of community-driven ideas. It is not a checklist of tasks that will be implemented regardless of community support. The plan sets the neighborhood up for success by narrowing a community-supported vision so we can be intentional with development efforts and programming focus. None of the concepts in the document commits the city or stakeholders to do anything. Further research is needed for nearly every idea, including the idea of a business improvement district, which we will be researching and discussing at length with downtown property owners over the next 6 months. I invite everyone to watch city council meetings, read the plan, read the FAQ that's available on our website, ask questions, and get accurate information. Our website is downtownbrookings.com, and my inbox is always open as well, so reach out if you need clarity, and I would love to help. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions that anyone has for open forum? All right, we'll move on to item 6, consent agenda, approval of the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second, is there any public comment on any of the items in our consent agenda? Does council have questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Specker.
Aye.
Tildenburn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran.
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye. All right, on to presentations and reports. And Claire Kennecke is here from SDSU Student Association.
Good evening, everyone. I've just got a few things for you tonight. First of all, we've been continuing to work on the app development with the beta buses. We've chosen to model our app after one that is currently being used in Durango, Colorado. We've currently been reaching out to developers to get cost estimates before we move on to the next steps. And then we have been finalizing our general activity fee strategic plan with the hopes to present it to the Board of Regents at their December meeting, which is in Spearfish this year. And that's the end of my report.
Any questions for Claire? Councilmember Wendell.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a question for Claire, but I do have a congratulations for Ms. Kennecke. She was recently named the 2025 Hobo Day Grand Poobah. So we'll be seeing a lot of Claire over the next year. So congratulations.
Thank you. I'm excited to move into the role.
All right. Thank you, Claire. And then BMU report, Councilmember Avery.
Okay, we have just a short report tonight. I was at the meeting just this afternoon, and one of the highlights, we had Tim Reed and Stephanie Mason were there to give our report to the BMU board on the status of the economic development activities that their organizations are working on. We did have one highlight that was the approval of the budget, which was spent quite a bit of time on that over the last few meetings. And one of the items in the budget was the approval of the annual transfer of funds from Brookings Utilities to the general fund of the city, $2,655,000. So that's, they approved that as they do, and each year that goes up by $50,000. So the next year we'll get that plus an additional $50,000. They talked about a little bit of increase in the water and the wastewater charges that you'll see on your bill. Average family household, which is for the water increase would be 5.3%, and on the wastewater be 5%. Now there's all different tiers of rates and everything, but that's a small household, an average household. So it's not going to be a large impact on the average person. So that's my report.
All right, thank you, Wayne. And then Brookings Health System?
Thank
Rhiann?
you. Yep, thank you, Mayor. So at our meeting, we had a 3D walkthrough of the Yorkshire Medical Building of what the new building is going to look like. You may have seen some promotion in the Brookings Register about that recently. That building is to be complete in June of 2025. We also received just a strategic plan update of some inner workings that the health system is working on. On the night of the meeting, they were having a community clinic with 500 influenza and 1,000 Tdap vaccines from the Department of Health that was going to be dispersed freely to community members and surrounding residents. The health system also hosted a diaper drive, which resulted in 5,000 diapers and 53 packages of wipes being received. The health system was recently awarded America's Best in-State Hospital in 2025 and received an additional Patient Experience Award. And then there has also been a nationwide IV shortage because of Hurricane Helene. So just an update is that a task force was formed to conserve the current IV solutions, but we are expected to receive regular allocations based on our order history, but they are maintaining a close watch on our reserve. End of report for the health system.
Say again?
An end of report for the health system.
All right, thank you very much. Move on to item 8, contracts and change orders. Item 8A, action on resolution 24-098, a resolution authorizing change order number 1 for the 2024 Brookings Trails project. Kristen Zimmerman, our Park Rec and Forestry Director, will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. The resolution before you is a change order for our 2024 Trails projects. The change order was needed due to increased excavation of the 6 Hour Park Trail, just so we could get down to a good clay layer, and then also increased reinforcement with the concrete due to all the flooding in that area along 6 Mile Creek. With the almost $23,000 in the change order, this amount still would be under the next lowest bid. So it falls within budget and still remains the lowest bid. I stand for any questions.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Kristen, I got a question right now. Oh, is there any public comment on this item, first of all? All right, council have any questions? I guess my first question is what was the original estimate on what was the engineer's estimate, more or less?
225, 220 to 225.
All right. Any other questions, comments from council? Please call the roll.
Dildenburn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran.
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Motion passes. We have no first readings this evening. Item 10, second readings and public hearings. Second reading and action on ordinance 24-037, the 2025 appropriation ordinance. Ashley Rentz, our financial director, will present this item.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. This is the second reading of ordinance 24-037, 2025 budget appropriations. No changes have been made since the first reading, and in the essence of time, I will show our online interactive budget book at the next meeting, and we'll just go right into a few highlights from the budget in brief, which you should all have a copy of. The 2025 budget is just over $73 million, and this is about $2.8 million more than our 2024 adopted budget, or a 3.9% increase. This increase is driven primarily by TIF projects and also storm drainage projects, and we're projecting positive sales tax growth in 2025. We're projecting a 7.3% increase over the 2024 adopted budget, and this was calculated by taking the 2023 actual revenue as a baseline with 2.2% growth for 2024 and 2025 based on the Congressional Budget Office estimates. We're budgeted for 157 full-time employees in 2025, with the addition of a master mechanic in public works and an associate planner in community development. And a few exciting things that we are working on that will continue into 2025 would be the OpenGov implementation of our budgeting and planning module, the growing community service division, and their code enforcement transition, and the growing activity center membership and programming. We practice balanced budgeting across all of our funds, and in the general fund, our revenues and expenditures are balanced at $21,860,776. About 66% of our general fund revenues are made up of property tax and sales tax, and about 66% of our expenditures come from police, public works, and parks, rec, and forestry. Our CIP highlights for 2025 include street maintenance at $3.6 million, an inclusive play project at Fishback Soccer Complex at $900,000, the Public Works and Community Development Office renovation at $361,000, and a skate park renovation at $315,000, and then various vehicle and equipment replacements. With that, I'll turn it over to Paul for a quick update on staffing.
Actually, could you go back to that link?
Sure.
I just want to take a brief moment. And Ashley, I would ask you to just talk a little bit about this link. One of the things that we have never had before in this organization is an interactive budget. Ashley has spent many days and many nights putting this together, and I don't think it would be fair to Ashley to not share tonight what you have, and maybe we can spend a little bit more time in a future study session. But in the effort of transparency, Ashley and staff has created this website here, working through OpenGov. It's a new technology and software that we have that has really streamlined the budget process. Not only do we still continue to work with department heads, employees, and staff to create a balanced budget for City Council to present for 2025, but now we have this tool. And what's neat about this tool is that anyone, any time of day, could really drill down to our budget and understand where we sit at any point in time of the year. And so I think, I know the meeting's getting a little long, but Ashley, you put a lot of work into this, and it's only fair to you to share some of this great work.
Okay, so if you go to our budget book homepage, which will be available on our website soon, you'll go across the top and you'll see all of the different sections of the budget book. And you can just click on these down arrows and see and click on whatever page that you want to look at. This, as an example, this government and staff page shows our org chart and then different interactive graphs that show different things about our staffing. Down here we have our budget highlights. We have 3 different quick links, one for the city manager's budget message, one for the budget in brief, and then one for the capital improvement plan summary. We have, on the city manager's budget message, we have it linked wherever possible to give people a chance to interact with the budget and get quick access to those items that are talked about within the budget message. It also contains some interactive graphs that you can click to explore the data. And you can do some different filters and views and find whatever data that you are interested in. The budget in brief, so basically the PDF version is available for printer friendly, and then we have the budget in brief kind of page here that has all that same information in a web page format. We also have the capital improvement plan summary. This has the printer-friendly version of the capital improvement plan, as well as the 10-year summary of revenues by type, and then a 10-year summary of expenditures by category. You can go into the table of contents, and that contains all of the different pages that are part of the budget book. You have the introductory section, you have the departments. So each department has a page like this where it shows the purpose statement, the full-time employee count, the budget summary of revenues and expenditures, year over year differences in revenues and expenditures, narratives on departmental goals, and then projects, programs, and initiatives, as well as a budget detail that shows the 2022 and 2023 actuals, 2024 and 2025 budgets, and then the year-over-year dollar amount difference and the year-over-year percent difference for each line item. And then the capital improvement plan, each department has its own 10-year graph, and then the individual projects laid out for each year. And then we have also the full budget detail, which just contains a basic budget detail with no narratives or extra graphs. And then the consolidated fee schedule is broken out by department and just shows all of your fees. And finally, the appendix has the comprehensive management policy. It'll have a copy of the past budget ordinance, and it will have a glossary of terms. That is an overview of our budget book.
Thanks, Ashley. Could you go back to the presentation? Yep. And maybe council, if you have any questions of the budget before I move on beyond the budget. I know the mayor asked me to just give a quick overview since we are recommending the addition of 2 positions for 2025, to talk a little bit about the positions that we've added over the years and how the city goes about adding positions, reformatting positions, and what that means to the community and to the organization. As you can see, the positions that we have here from 2018 to 2025, there's about 30 different positions. These positions were not added to the community. Anytime we have an open position within our organization, we challenge the department head to go back and do an analysis to determine whether or not that position is first still needed, number 2, if we need to evolve the position, or if the position can be used in any other department. Additionally, as we add more duties to employees, we often look at the position titles, but also the pay as well to determine what's fair for the employee. And so these 30 positions here aren't new positions, but really reformatted positions based on those analyses. Some have increases, some have decreases, but they were not truly 100% full-time impacts to the budget, but merely maybe a $5,000 or a $10,000 impact. I'll go and move to the next slide, Ashley, if you would. There has been a question on how many department heads, LT members have we added since 2018. In 2018, we had roughly 17 leadership positions. You could see them here by the organizational chart that's before you. Ashley, if you go to the next slide. Since 2018, looking to this year, we actually have reduced the number of LT members down to 14. And that came with the transition of a public works director who now oversees engineering, street, and solid waste. Those are no longer LT positions. What we've done with those salary savings, we still have those as managers, not directors, and we've added that salary savings into the public works salary to make it as budget neutral as possible. However, we are utilizing some funds from solid waste, from stormwater, and very little from the general fund. Our direction has always been to have minimal impact to the general fund as much as possible, because that's where your sales tax and property tax come from. And at the next button. As you can see, since 2018, the added positions that we have added is roughly 18. I know I have the number wrong there, it says 16, but there has been 18 positions added over the time, over the past 6 to 7 years. A number of those positions have been boots on the ground in various departments. We know that when we look at our workforce, we have a limited number of employees. We want to make sure, in order to provide the services necessary for this community, we have the employees in the right positions. We've actually only added one person in the leadership position over the last 7 years. The rest, once again, we're all boots on the ground employees, with maybe a manager here or there. But director position, we've actually only added one. When you look at the different color codings, the green were added with general fund dollars, either using sales tax or property tax funds. Those in orange, we utilized other revenues to lessen our impact to the general fund while adding employees and positions to achieve the outcomes that the city council and this community desire when it comes to providing professional public services. So just wanted to give a quick overview. Once again, we've reduced the actual number of LT members over the course of the last 6 to 7 years. From 17 to 14, and we've added a number of new positions throughout the organization, mainly boots on the ground position. This is just a quick presentation to show you how those positions were added, especially since we're adding 2 more positions for next year. One of them is going to be a master mechanic to take care of those vehicles within our fleet. And then the other one is an associate planner. Knowing the amount of increase in building that we've had in this community, it's critical that we make that investment for the future of development and what this community will look like in the next 50 to 100 years. So with that, let's stand for any questions you might have of this presentation or the budget as well.
Thank you, Ashley and Paul. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any public comment on any item that was presented? Council have any questions or comments? Councilmember Duran.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make a quick comment of thanking you for all your work on the interactive budget. I really look forward to every year. I feel like our staff comes up with more creative and visual ways to present the budget. And I think that having this interactive budget is going to increase our accessibility and transparency and just make it easy to digest for our community members to understand our budget layout. So thank you for your work on this. I'm excited to dig in. Thank you.
All right. Any other council member questions, comments? I'd like to compliment the staff all the way throughout the whole system for putting their budget together and working through having to maybe cut some places and add on. Ashley, nice job. And I know Jake is not here tonight. I know he was very instrumental in a lot of the budget work. So with that being said, please call the roll.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran.
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tilton Burn.
Aye.
All right, on to item 10B, public hearing on an action on annual liquor and wine alcohol license renewals for establishments which have failed an alcoholic beverage compliance check within the past 12 months. And I'll have Bonnie Foster, our city clerk, present this item.
Mayor and council members, annual alcohol compliance checks are conducted by the Brookings Police Department randomly throughout the year. The focus on the compliance checks is for sales or service of alcoholic beverage to those under the age of 21. The establishments that we have set aside this evening are Buffalo Wild Wings. They have had 3 failures in the last 24 months, but they have passed the most recent check, which was conducted in September of 2024. Park Hospitality, or better known as the La Cantina restaurant, has also had 3 failures in the last 24 months. They also, too, have passed the last check in September of 2024. And the third one is Edgebrook Golf Course. They have only had 1 failure in the past 12 months. All of these establishments have completed the state-required processes for compliance check failures and paid the appropriate fines. Establishment representatives provided written responses as to their internal processes to ensure future compliance. These were distributed to you under separate communication as they are considered confidential. Dean Bachmeyer with Buffalo Wild Wings and Lance Park with Park Hospitality or La Cantina are unable to be here this evening. Gary Moen with Edgebrook Golf Course is present if the council has any questions for him. It is the duty of the City Council to determine whether the establishment's owner is a suitable applicant and whether the location of the license use is still suitable for an alcoholic license. If the council approves these license renewals, final paperwork will be sent to the South Dakota Department of Revenue, which will make the final determination if the licenses are indeed renewed. I stand by for any questions.
Thanks, Bonnie. Before I ask for a motion, I would like to ask the council if they would like to separate these three entities and review them separately, individually, I guess is the word. I'm just going to go with a motion to, to treat them separately. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All right. Public comment on this? Council, you have any questions, comments on this? Are you okay with this? Bonnie, do you have a comment?
Can we add some more motions? Could we move to delay the La Cantina?
Well, okay, we can do that. Do you extend that on there and say we only want to discuss one item and table the other two?
Right, because I would like to hear from the owners.
And I think it'd be more expeditious if we separated the three. So that-
Right.
yeah, okay, so could we have action on that motion at this time?
Sure.
All right. So the motion is?
The motion is to separate the three individual licensees and have separate motions on whether you will renew or not.
All right. Please call the roll.
Avery,
Aye.
Doran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tiltonburn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Motion passes. So let's go with the golf course first. Municipal golf course. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Public comment on this item? This would be your cue, Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, Gary. What I should say is open the public hearing on this item. Is there any public comment? There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Gary Moen is my name. I'm the manager at Edgebrook Golf Course. Have been for 10 years. So we've been tested every year in the 10 years, and this is the only failure we ever had. And the guy who did it feels terrible about it. And I've sent a letter to you guys, and he feels real terrible that it happened. We check people every time if they when they come in to buy alcohol beverages at our place. So it's I'm here really to apologize to the city council and the mayor and every other employee. And I worked for the court system for 28 years, and it was pretty tough to take this kind of thing.
All right. Thanks, Gary. Are there any public comments beyond that? Council, do you have any questions? All right. Please call the roll.
Doran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tiltonburn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
All right. So I will make a motion to table the public hearing for the Park Hospitality venue. Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tiltonburn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Doran.
Aye.
All right. And then I'll make a motion to table the Buffalo Wild Wings application for renewal. Oh, do we have Buffalo Wild Wings here? Let's open that puppy up then. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
And then is there a second?
Second.
All right, open the public hearing on this item.
Hi, I'm Dylan Meek. I'm the general manager of Buffalo Wild Wings. Took over in February. So recently we passed the a compliance check in September. Before that, we did roll out a handheld card scanner. So servers and bartenders have been trained to just take those to their tables in efforts to stop failing these compliance checks. So.
Okay. Any council questions, comments? Councilmember Specker?
So that, the handheld reader, was that brought out after the last failure?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so whatever's caused these 3 failures has drastically changed.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have the, I understand that fake IDs are so easy to obtain anymore. Do you basically have the most update technology possible?
Yeah, so there'll be software updates on there every so often.
Okay.
A lot of the fake IDs will still scan on them, but they'll catch a lot of those as well. The way it works is there'll be 3 different lights. The card reader system flashes green. System basically acknowledges that the card scanned all the data on it, checked out. If it's yellow, that's where it's marking that as a potentially fraudulent ID and probably withhold service. And then red's just straight up their underage ID scan, but doesn't come back to their being 21 or older.
All right, thank you. Is there any public questions and comments on this item? Quick question
Just a
from
quick question. Do you have sufficient number of those readers for all the staff that would be on duty serving different tables?
So there's 3 in the building, 1 at essentially every server station. So when they go to greet a new table, they can take that with them.
And they're receiving training to utilize that in every occasion?
Yes.
All right, any questions, Council? Councilmember Wendell.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment for those that are watching or following along. Clearly, we're treating these 3 issues differently. And I just want to echo something that Gary shared. When the failure occurred at Edgebrook, we heard immediately from management and from the staff that failed the compliance check with a remedy and a plan of action. And I think as a council member, it certainly gave me confidence that Edgebrook was addressing the issue and taking it seriously. Because we've seen repeated failures from other businesses, including the 2 that we're considering this evening, and didn't have the same level of follow-up, I think that's why we have to approach the issue a bit differently. And that's why you're seeing the conversation go the direction it's going this evening.
Councilmember Duran.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the update that you've instituted scanners now since the last check. I was wondering if you could overview steps that you have taken in between the other compliance failures of addressing this issue?
So previously, we went through the alcohol safety courses through ServSafe. So that was on the last one. So on top of that, we're adding those scanners and just really honing in on staff that you got to check everybody. Part of your job, so.
Sure, thank you.
All right, any other questions, comments from council? Thank you for coming up. Please call the roll.
Specker.
Aye.
Tildenburn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran.
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye. Motion passes. And we hope that maybe next meeting we can have the owner present for the other alcohol license. Item 10C, public hearing and action on Resolution 24-100, a resolution of intent to lease real property at Brookings Airport to Pheasants Fury Aviation LLC. Lucas Dahl, our airport manager, will present this item.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Lucas Dahl with the Brookings Regional Airport. Item 10C is a resolution of intent to lease real property at the Brookings Regional Airport to Pheasants Fury Aviation. Approval of the resolution will authorize the city manager to enter into a new lease with Pheasants Fury Aviation for 5,280 square feet located on Site 133 at the Brookings Regional Airport. The termination, the current lease agreement with Pheasants Fury, the new rate for the lease will be 18 cents per square foot with an annual amount of $950.40. The lease amount will increase by 2% annually and is subject to review every 5 years. The new lease is consistent with other airport leases and will have a term of 25 years. Pheasants Fury Aviation was previously owned by Randy Hansen and has recently been sold to Joseph Johnson. With the sale of the corporation, the current hangar lease for Pheasants Fury Aviation, Randy Hansen, will be terminated. The new hangar lease with Pheasants Fury Aviation, Joseph Johnson, will be executed. The city attorney has reviewed the lease. Staff, along with the airport board, recommends approval.
Thank you, Lucas. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Been moved and second. Is open to public hearing on this item. Is there any public comment? Public hearing is now closed. Does council have any questions, comments on this item? Please call the roll.
Tildenburn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran.
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
All right, other business. Action on Resolution 24-101, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a fixed-base operator agreement with Pheasants Fury Aviation. Lucas will also present this item.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Lucas Dahl with the Brookings Regional Airport. Item 11A is a resolution to approve a fixed base operation agreement with Pheasants Fury Aviation. Approval of the resolution will authorize the city manager to execute a new fixed base operation agreement with Pheasants Fury Aviation for a period of 5 years and terminate the current FBO agreement. Pheasants Fury Aviation has been the FBO at the Brookings Regional Airport since 2008. Recently, the owner of Pheasants Fury Aviation, Randy Hansen, sold the corporation and the assets to Joseph Johnson. The change in ownership has prompted the need for a new FBO agreement. The proposed resolution will execute a new agreement with Pheasants Fury Aviation under the ownership of Joseph Johnson and a termination of the current FBO agreement dated July 24th, 2018 with Pheasants Fury Aviation under the ownership of Randy Hansen. All services will remain the same under the new ownership, including aviation fueling, apron services, maintaining a 24-hour lobby to serve pilots and aircraft personnel, and other miscellaneous services. The new agreement will be for a 5-year term expiring December 31st, 2029. The FBO is anticipated to provide approximately $14,000 per year in revenue. The revenue is derived from aviation fuel flowage fees, landing fees, and tie-down fees. The city attorney has reviewed the agreement. Staff and airport board recommend approval.
Thank you, Lucas. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on this item? Council have any questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran.
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tildenburn.
Aye.
Item 11B, action on Resolution 24-097, a resolution adopting the consolidated fee schedule. Ashley Wrench, our financial director, will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Resolution 24-097, adopting the consolidated fee schedule. Each year, in conjunction with the annual budget process, we adopt the entire consolidated fee schedule, which is effective January 1st. Some changes to note for 2025 include regular increases to fuel flowage, hangar application, and gate card fees at the airport. In the City Clerk's Department, simplified transportation network company license fees to a flat $500 and removed annual and new driver requirements, and increased the daily carnival or exhibition fees and temporary merchant fees to be more comparable with peers. In community development, we had regular increases to building permits and a minor restructure of residential permit fees, as well as a removal of certain moving fees. In the library, we had regular increases to out-of-county library card fees and the addition of meeting room reservation fees and printing and copy fees. In planning and zoning, we had regular increases in sign permits and Board of Adjustment fees, an increase in the TIF application fee to be consistent with the TIF policy, And in the police department, we separated accident reports from general police reports for fee purposes and added body camera footage fees. And we also did a general review and update of all the fines and violations. In Public Works, we added a site review fee for storm drainage at $152. And for solid waste collections and landfill, we had regular increases for all items, added the unit column to the fee schedule for clarity, and added a fee for camp trailers per ton to distinguish them from mobile homes. The consolidated fee schedule will be available on our website as part of the online budget book. And with that, I'll stand by for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Is there any public comment on this item? Council have any questions, comments on? Councilmember Wendell.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a question about the body cam footage fee in the police department. I assume we've not ever assessed a fee related to providing body cam footage. Is that true?
I'm not exactly sure. I know that it hasn't been part of the fee schedule before.
Okay.
Terry's here. Terry, can you answer that question? We've never provided. If you want to come to the microphone so it's recorded. Thank you.
Maybe while you're walking up, Terry, I'll just mention another question I had, whether or not we'd had a fee before, and then how we came up with the structure with the two separate fees, other communities, how they're addressing body cam footage.
In regards to this, Terry Kuhn, Patrol Lieutenant. In regards to the first question, we have never had a fee with body cams. We're asking for the fee because of the increased requests for the body camera footages. And we did it in comparison to some of the other cities, what they were doing. So that was part of our analysis.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Who would typically request body camera footage that would be assessed this fee?
Public can request it, and it has to go through a process through our records management sergeant. It has to go through a process also with any criminal defense, any other agencies, accidents, request those type of body camera footages.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you, Terry. Any questions, Councilmember Tilton Morton?
My question is actually a follow-up, so Terry, I don't know if you want to sit down there. Two questions. One is if body camera footage was requested for litigation purposes or in use of a case, would the fee be administered in that instance as well?
No, generally not. Those are requested through the state's attorneys or through the subject's attorney, personal attorney. So those are generally not, because most of the defense attorneys can acquire those through the state's attorney's office.
Okay. And then my other question is, when someone pays the fee and gets access to the body camera footage, are they actually given like a drive with the footage on it? Are they given the opportunity to look at it? What do they get in return?
They're getting an actual copy of the body camera footage.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from council? Questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Avery,
Aye.
Doran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tilton.
Aye.
Wendell.
Motion passes. Item 11C, action on the 10-year capital improvement plan. Ashley Wrench, our finance director, will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is action to approve the 10-year CIP. This plan is a 10-year strategic document that generally includes purchases of at least $25,000. The primary revenue source for this fund is second penny sales tax and includes funding for city equipment, fleet, and facilities. The plan also includes debt service for various city projects, as well as outside agency funding for the SDSU Performing Arts Center and the Brookings Health System. This plan is balanced through 2034 and was presented in greater detail at our budget workshops in September and October. Staff recommends approval of the capital improvement plan as presented, and with that, I'll stand by for questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Ashley. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any public comment on this item? Is there any council questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Doran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tilton, Wendell,
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
All right. Item 11D, action on Resolution 24-102, a resolution creating the boundaries of tax increment district number 13. Mike Struck, our Community Development Director, will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Actually, the next three items are kind of all interlinked and tied together. The first step is the creation of the boundaries. Where resolution tonight, 24-102, comes to you with a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission for approval, and staff supports it. It's to create the boundaries for tax increment district number 13. It's a little bit unique in this particular one is the boundaries that were reviewed by the Planning Commission actually occurred in July of 2023. We took about a year pause or so as some things changed kind of with the development of the Brookings Marketplace. And the district is actually created at the date that the City Council approved, so we didn't want to jeopardize losing that potential increment that would be generated from the project, so we paused a little. In the meantime, we've approved 3 other TIF districts, so our sequencing appears to be a little bit out of alignment. However, the Planning Commission took action on the creation of tax increment district boundaries for number 13 prior to 14, 15, and 16 coming forward. The property primarily consists of the Brookings Marketplace property, more commonly maybe known as the old DOT maintenance facility. It does include 2 parcels that are currently undeveloped that are just west of Whiskey Creek and the My Place Hotel. And then it does include the provisions for a new east-west road as well as a portion of 32nd Avenue. So as part of the process of working with the developer on the Marketplace property, a traffic impact study was required and identified some improvements that would be needed to 32nd Avenue at full build-out. So that's why that particular area of 32nd was proposed to be included in the district boundaries. With that, I would stand for any questions you have on the district boundaries.
Thank you, Mike. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on this item? Council have any questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tiltonburn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran.
Aye.
All right. Item 11E, action on Resolution 24-103, a resolution approving tax increment district number 13 project plan. Mike will also present this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Resolution 24-013 would be a resolution approving the project plan for tax increment district number 13. The project plan kind of spells out the details of the improvements that would be made within the district, the cost of those improvements, and then we do projections as far as what the increment would be generated. The eligible project costs associated with this plan is approximately $9 million. This is also a change from what the Planning Commission saw over a year ago. And so at that particular time, the project plan had eligible project costs of upwards of about $17 million. Part of that issue is when we were working through cost estimates and everything, we had seen, we were still getting some kind of COVID-related figures with some of the estimates. What we've looked at more recently is what we're actually seeing in some of the bid pricing that came in from more comparable projects, and we were able to bring those eligible project costs down. And so there was roughly about an $8 million change in the total project eligible costs from what the Planning Commission saw to what is being proposed tonight. In addition, we're showing the projected revenues. Conservatively, the increment is around about $4.5 million, but that's kind of a conservative estimate as well. With the project plan, it kind of creates the baseline for kind of our next item, which is the development agreement. One of the things that's commonly asked is with tax increment financing, state law restricts community or municipality from their taxable values of all taxable properties in a tax increment district plus other districts can't exceed the 10% of your maximum taxable value. And we're sitting right around 2%. So we still have quite a bit of room. If other projects that would come forward that you feel are appropriate for TIF financing, we still have 8% to work with. And each year as some of our existing TIF districts continue to perform well, we start to see those that are paying off, and we can just certify them, and then that would, that percentage number is constantly changing. So this does come to you with a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission. Staff supports the request for approving the project plan, and I'd stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mike. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Is there any public comment on this item? Council, questions, comments? Councilmember Specker.
Yeah, this is for Mike. The budget office does the projections out to like 2033, whatever. Do you guys do that with the actual TIFs, like the existing TIFs, so that, you're saying that it's 2% now, but is there some sort of worksheet where you can add on these new TIFs and see what it projects out as far as what percent of the budget it is?
Yes, we can. And we kind of work through our financial advisor with Colliers. They kind of help us with that. But the benefit with this particular TIF is you're primarily looking at 3 parcels. One of them is owned by the city, which has 0. So the other 2 are undeveloped, so they're pretty minimal. So when you look at creating a TIF, the ideal situation is undeveloped land, but it's almost perfect when it's city-owned land, because as soon as you transfer that land, you get immediate increment because it's now private and it's taxed, and then any improvements that they make on that land provides additional value. And so the way TIF works is, in our property tax structure, is you build in 1 year, it's assessed the next year, and you collect the 3rd year. So we run them for 20 years, but the reality of it is you really only collect for 18 because of the way the property tax structure is, and you pay in the rear. So when you look at that percentage-wise, yes, we do look at that. We work with our financial advisor, but most of our TIF districts, that when we add, the base value is so low that it doesn't have a significant impact. I think the largest one that we've probably added was the Solventum TIF, because the base value was somewhere in the ballpark of $17 million. Otherwise, most of our TIFs that we're creating, they're generally less than $1 million with base value. And so it takes a lot to really get that taxable value up to that 10%. I believe for the community, I think it's the last number I saw were somewhere around, our base values can be somewhere in the 150 million range, and we're nowhere near that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions, comments from council? Please call the roll.
Specker.
Aye.
Tiltonburn.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran.
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye. Item 11F, action to approve a development agreement with Ryan Companies U.S. Incorporated. Mike Struck, our Community Development Director, will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. The item before you tonight is a development agreement with Ryan Companies U.S. Incorporated out of Minneapolis. It's been a long time in the making. It's part of the Brookings Marketplace project. And it kind of started out originally as a TIF developers agreement, and then it was encompassed in to include the total package that is being considered. I'll just start briefly with the tax increment financing. The city is in agreement that the developer would be eligible to receive up to a maximum of $5.5 million with tax increment financing. The increment is only generated from the improvements that are made, and it's the property taxes that they're paying that they would eventually get reimbursed. So it's kind of a self-funding, self-supporting the quicker development occurs, the quicker the increment is generated, the revenue's coming in to help pay it back. The other part of the development agreement is a city incentive offering roughly $2 million to help with some of the infrastructure improvements. And so out in this particular area, the city also owns the Weiss property just to the north of the marketplace. It's about a 30-acre development there. There's some infrastructure improvements that are needed that would come through the Brookings Marketplace property that would provide the infrastructure necessary that the Weiss property to the north could then tap into. Without some of that investment that's made at this particular point in time, it'd be more costly in the long run to have to either upsize or go a different route to provide that infrastructure to make that property more developable to the north. And then there's some other improvements. One of the things with the My Place Hotel being in its current location, we have some minor adjustments we need to make to their property with driveway entrances to get proper spacing from the new east-west street that I believe is Market Way Drive, maybe. Not sure the official name yet, but that's kind of what we've been calling it. And then we got the appropriate right-of-way that's been dedicated by the two property owners on the south, and then the city also dedicated the appropriate right-of-way on the north side that will take out some of the property from the Research and Technology Center. With that, it does come to you with a recommendation of approval from staff, and we stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mike. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. I give time right now. Tim Reed would like to come up and give us a little bit of an economic impact of this project.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Tim Reed, CEO of the Brookings Economic Development Corporation. Come here today in support of the Marketplace infrastructure investment. This investment will have a big impact on the quality of life we all enjoy, and also will help us attract the labor force that we need for this growing community. The investment will have an impact short and long term in the economic vitality of Brookings, and I'll get to that just in a minute. But as you approved your capital plan and you approved the budget, you know how important sales tax is to this community, especially when it comes to city infrastructure, recreation, and safety, and many more things that the city provides this community. So it's important to know when we talk about sales tax that, and you probably know this, that the retail sales section of your sales tax collections is more than 50% of all your sales tax. Retail sales tax has always been right along that amount, going back in years. For example, in 2018, you received $14.9 million from taxable sales and gross receipts. And of that, $8.1 million came from the retail industry. That was 54%. Jumped to 2023, and you collected $20.9 million from taxable sales and gross receipts, so all that you collected. And retail there was $11.9 million of that, which is 56%. So you can see you're just a little over 50%, and that's held. We talk quite a bit about leakage. And you are trying to stop as much leakage in sales tax revenue as possible. We all know that we have communities that people drive to and they spend their money in other communities. Back in 2018, the BEDC did what's called a leakage study, and again, that's to measure how much is probably leaving this community in sales. And if you take a look at the leakage for general merchandise, clothing, and then their miscellaneous category, again, this was in 2018, it was estimated at $91 million. If you were to extrapolate that with the growth, you could see that it's $133 million of leakage, and so there's the possibility of capturing up to $2.6 million more in sales tax from the money that's leaving the community and being spent elsewhere. So that growth could be really important to the city. So the other thing I want to talk about is quality of life. Retail options have really always kind of gone hand in hand with quality of life. Of course, you want quality of life to, attract people into this community, and also so people are satisfied with the community that they're in. We've done consumer surveys. The BDC did one in 2019 and 2024. Or I should say the one in 2024 that we're doing now is really just getting started, but we still have some of the data. In 2019, they had a little over 2,000 respondents, and right now for our 2024, we have 753 respondents that will be growing. There's a question that's always asked in those surveys, and that is, what improvements would you like to see Brookings make? And both in 2019 and in 2024, the number one response was more shopping and retail options. Then we asked the question why people chose to go out of town. Why are they leaving Brookings to spend their money? And in 2019, the comment back was variety of stores. They're looking for more variety. Obviously, the Brookings Marketplace would help with that. In 2024, it was the same response, variety of stores. I did some research also looking at the survey during 2019, and the question was, if you could bring one new retailer to town, what would it be? There was data from 2013, a much older survey that was done, and in that case, the number one request was Target, 2 was Kohl's, and 3 was Shopko. Fast forward to 2019, again, it was Target, number 2 was Aldi, and number 3 was Kohl's. In 2024, number one again was Target, number 2 was Aldi, and number 3 was Kohl's. And so you see a big box retailer is what the community is looking for. All of that adds to our attraction, be able to attract labor force and such if we have those retail options. Now we'll go to economic impact. So what's been proposed here, this investment, has probably a 2-year construction timeline. And so over the 2 years, the impact of this $57 million that you're looking at will have an impact of $80.9 million on our economic of the city. You know, that's going to be over 2 years, so it'll be a little over $40 million over the next 2 years because of construction. That's 622 jobs. So 311 jobs per year is what will be brought to this community just on the construction. That'll have a city tax impact of $957,483. That's the estimate. Now that includes mostly sales tax, but people that are there are also paying on property taxes, so it includes both of that. The county will also benefit $147,488 in tax revenue because of this construction. So that's what happens over those 2 years. And you think about your payback on your investment here, that $957,000 makes the payback pretty quick. And that, we're not even talking about the sales tax, the ongoing sales tax. So the ongoing impact from this investment, and really it's a lot about the employment impact it'll have, the estimate is that it'll support 148 jobs. The economic output of those 148 jobs is $15.7 million. That'll be an ongoing tax revenue for the city, estimated at $200,833 per year. The direct sales tax revenue, which you've seen in your packet, is also estimated from $1.1 to $1.5 million. So you can see that your investment in this would have a quick payback. The other thing is, and as you look at this map that's shown to the north, there's a lot of area that could be used for more expansion, whether it be retail or housing, and of course your infrastructure investment will help open that area up to further development for the city. So in conclusion, the Brookings Marketplace Development Project represents an investment in the Brookings community with the potential for significant economic, social, and quality of life enhancements. The one-time construction phase will support 622 jobs, contributing an economic output of $80.9 million. Once operations at the marketplace, the ongoing impacts will generate $15.7 million annually in economic impact, and that's supported by the stable job base of 148 positions. That's an annual income, labor income of $5.3 million and an estimated sales tax revenue between $1.1 million and $1.5 million. With the marketplace addressing a critical $15.2 million grocery store leakage, it is positioned to retain substantial consumer spending in Brookings while meeting community demand for expanded retail. Enhanced shopping will not only benefit residents, but will also attract visitors, potentially increasing hotel stays and stimulating further commercial development. So I will hope that you would support this investment for the city of Brookings. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Any other public comment? I would assume Patrick Daly is coming up.
Good Good evening, everybody. Again, Patrick Daly with Ryan Companies, the lead developer for the project. Appreciate council, Mr. Mayor, for the time to be here tonight, and a special thanks to Paul and Mike and the rest of the city staff for all of their help in getting to this point. As you are well aware, I've been in front of this forum a series of times now, and this is another important milestone for not only the project, but I think the community as well. In large part, the project itself is relatively straightforward and is consistent with the project that you had all seen before the referendum last winter. In its simplest form, the development is a regional shopping center that's going to be anchored by 127,000 square foot national general merchant retailer. We're currently in the process of finalizing that agreement. This part of tonight is part of that process. We remain under a non-disclosure agreement and look forward to being able to announce them coming to the community, I hope very, very soon. In addition to the new anchor, we are continuing to make progress with Aldi. We've got a meeting scheduled with the DRT, the Development Review Team, on Thursday morning to review that project plan and to continue to advance that part of the project. And then lastly, on the southeast corner, we are working with a regional C-store operator who's very well known throughout this area, and they have got plans to be starting construction here hopefully next year as well. The development agreement that's in front of you is really a critical component of this project. As you're aware, there's a disproportionate share of offset improvements that are needed in order to unlock and put the Brookings Marketplace land into production. And it's critical that we have this development agreement approved in order to make it financially viable to be able to draw on those tenants that I had mentioned. From a timeline perspective, once the development agreement is finalized, our goal is to work through the remainder of the project contingencies as fast as possible, and hopefully have a land closing here by the end of the year, next month. Although we'd love to start construction right away, due to the seasonality, that's not going to be viable. So our intention is to break ground and start construction first thing in the spring. And the anchor tenant has got a goal of having their store open within 12 months, so call it early summer of 2026. Thank you again for your consideration, and happy to answer any other questions.
All right, thanks, Patrick. Any other public comments on this item? Stay up here, Patrick, because I got questions right away. And I think I'll start off the questioning for the council. Can you name, obviously you're saying a particular C-store and the anchor tenant, but who else will be also there?
So as I mentioned, Aldi is going to be coming to the project. And then we've got another C-store group that I remain under an NDA as well, because we're just finalizing our contracts with them, but my expectation is that we'll be seeking to have a development review of their plan probably in the next 60 to 90 days.
Okay. And then you kind of gave us timelines for construction. Any other questions? Comments? All right, please call the roll.
Tilton
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Doran.
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Long time coming. Okay, item 11G, action on resolution 24-096, a resolution revising the compensation for mayor and city council members of the city of Brookings. Paul Bursino, our city manager, will present this item.
Thanks, Mayor, City Council members. As part of the budget process, staff does provide analysis for comparable municipalities, as well as the Midwest CPI for salary increases and the proposed budget. This past year, we did review comparability of council members and mayor's pay. We realized the last increase for city council didn't occur until 2012, hasn't occurred since 2012. Staff compared 15 other South Dakota communities for elected pay comparability, and based on this analysis, the average pay for city manager form of governments for electeds is $9,000 for council members and roughly $23,000 for the mayor. Utilizing this comparable analysis, staff does recommend increasing pay for the 2025 budget for council pay from $7,200 to $9,000 annually, and the mayor pay from $9,600 to $12,000 annually. Staff recommends approval of this resolution as presented.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any public comment on this item? Close the public hearing. Comments from council? Questions? Councilmember Wendell.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just want to make a comment about what perhaps are the optics of the council and mayor voting on enhancing our salaries. As I approach this consideration, I really think about creating opportunity for anybody who wants to serve to be able to viably serve. And I think depending on what station or stage of life you're in, serving on the council may require you to take time away from your full-time job. I think in particular, if you're an hourly worker, that may mean a reduction in your take-home salary. And so I think if we don't remain competitive in terms of compensation for hypothetical councilors and mayors in the future, serving on a city council becomes a pretty exclusive type of opportunity. And so I think if we can just incrementally increase compensation in these roles, it means more folks in our community could consider running for a seat on the council or in the mayor's office.
Well said. Councilmember Tilton-Burn.
I would just add to that it's obviously very uncomfortable to vote on an issue like this because it is impacting us as individuals. But that said, I would concur with some of the statements that Councilman Wendell had mentioned. And really, this is about making sure that we provide a fair compensation for the work that is done. There is a fair amount of time that an individual has to commit to their role in City Council and in the role of mayor. And so making sure that not only we are ensuring that us as current representatives up here have the pay in accordance with the role, but also any future individuals that serve in these positions. And I would certainly encourage us to take a look at an evaluation of the pay for these positions more frequently than once every 12 years. That might allow us to do a smaller increase each time rather than a jump like this at one time.
Paul, you want to expand on that comment that Holly had on reviewing?
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out, Mayor. Within the resolution, it does increase the pay for 2025. Beyond 2025, there is an added language to increase the pay based on the range increase or equivalent COLA that is given to employees as well, to make sure that it's kept up. If you just do a simple 2% increase since 2012, it really goes beyond the 9,000 that we're recommending for City Council. And so just to try to keep up with that increase in consumer price index and cost of living, we're recommending that language within the resolution. But that wouldn't take place until 2026.
Any other comments, questions from council? Councilmember Dern.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just reiterate what other council members have said, but I just wanted to also note that we were fiscally mindful with peer communities as well, as you can see in the chart that's presented. And just to name, we say that the work is considerable, but what does that mean? It's more than just the city council meetings. We also have community engagement, and that can be formal opportunities as well as just informal engagement. We have constituent correspondence in multiple different avenues. Many of us sit on multiple committees or hold multiple ex officio positions. We have staff correspondence and meetings, and then other projects and meetings that pop up. So I am proud to say that we work hard to earn our pay as well.
All right. Please call the roll.
Wendell?
Aye.
Avery?
Aye.
Doran?
Aye.
Niemeyer?
Aye.
Specker?
Aye.
Tilton-Burn?
Aye.
Motion passes. That ends kind of the business that we have this evening. We have two council meetings yet this month. We have a study session next week, and that will entail Charter Commission, right? And then golf course update, snow removal process, and what's the other one here?
Downtown incentive program for 2025.
Right, okay. All right, and then that meeting starts at 6 p.m. Our next scheduled meeting, we have presentations from the students, SDSU, third quarter finance report. We have pinning ceremony for 2 officers. And then bid award on Hayland lease for next year. No first readings or second readings as of right now. We do have union contract to negotiate or pass. And then progress report by the assistant of the city manager. And with that being said, are there any introductions to other subjects that the council wants to discuss in the future? That being said, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.